Good morning and welcome to the Spartan Beast World Championship, hosted here for the fourth time in Abu Dhabi by the Abu Dhabi Sports Council. My name is Francesca Curando and I am joined by Martin Perrier.
Hi Francesca, how are you doing?
Great. I'm very excited to see this race here today. We have an incredible race ahead and a huge field in front of us. It is going to be an amazing competition.
Yeah, you can be sure at the end of a long season, all those runners are ready to go one last time for a big showdown.
It is indeed. This is the final race of the Spartan Championship calendar. I have been very lucky to work with you on a few of these championship races, including the Ultra World Championship in Morzine and the very first Sprint World Championship in Croatia. But this, the Beast World Championship happening in Abu Dhabi, is the final jewel in the crown of the Spartan World Championship season.
Yeah, this is kind of the ultimate challenge. What I really like here is it's going to have people from either the most enduring one that can perform really well in Morzine, or the very fast demons on the sprint. And here they're gonna fight in the sand, which really is leveling the playing field. We're in for a tough battle today.
We're in for a very tough battle here. You can see some clips from the kind of terrain they're going to be running in. An amazing thing about this race is how it adds to the calendar on the whole, how many different races Spartan puts on in their championship season. As I said, we had the Ultra World Championship in the beautiful mountains of Morzine, and the island of Hvar in Croatia hosted the Sprint World Championships, and here we are in the desert for something totally different. This is the Beast, a 21-kilometer race with a lot of prize money on the line, which we will get to. And the very best in the sport are here to claim the title of champion.
In between them and a potential prize money, there's going to be a tough competition, a really tough course. You've seen all that sand. I think most people watching right now are not in a place that's sandy, so it's hard to imagine really how tough it makes it on the runners. And then a lot of grueling obstacles in a typical Spartan fashion, almost 40 obstacles today on top of the sand, which is an obstacle in itself.
And talking of obstacles, something quite exciting today in this race, which we'll very quickly mention, is the return of the burpees, only for the spear throw. So that's a nod to the history of Spartan race, and that's going to be a big change for the race. Talking of the obstacles, let's have a look at the live map. As you said, we have nearly 40 obstacles, 32. We start with the hurdles to the over walls, then over unders and 6-foot walls, followed by a barbed wire crawl, inverted wall, and rope climb. There's a second barbed wire crawl.
Look at this mountain here just after that we see on the screen. This is terrible. They're going up and down the same dune.
This is terrible.
We're going to see them struggle there.
Absolutely, we are. All the obstacles dotting at the bottom of this dune, coming up and down. Armour, followed by Irish tables. Now, we are early in the morning, but the heat is going to increase very quickly, which adds an extra element to this race. Stairway, Olympus, 7-foot wall, a lot of classic Spartan obstacles. Bucket carry, zigzag walls. Double sandbag and plate drag, which does include that sandbag carry onto the plate, followed by the Herc hoist. Another barbed wire, number 3, Atlas carry, classic monkey bars, dunk wall, another sandbag, and here they come right at the end, one after the other. We've got then the A-frame, the multi-rig, and very often the decider of the race, the spear throw, where we do have those classic 30 burpees are back. Finishing off with the slip wall and the very, very iconic Spartan fire jump.
I think indeed that spear throw can absolutely be the deciding factor, especially in a race that long when people are so tired towards the end. We're going to see potentially a bit more spear misses compared to a short and fast course where they can stay focused and hit it in the bullseye almost every time.
Well, we've certainly seen some examples of the spear throw causing changes in the race, but last year at the Spartan Beast World Championship, hosted in the same place, we did see Ryan Atkins, who isn't racing today, nail the spear throw and give it 2 fingers. He was very happy. A very rare show of emotion from Ryan there when he nailed that spear throw. So that just shows when an athlete like that responds in that way to that obstacle, just how controversial it can be.
Absolutely. Before they get started, I just want to draw your attention to the shoes that they're wearing, and more specifically the gaiters. If you look at what all the runners are wearing, we don't see it too well here before they are getting started, and maybe we're going to have some close-ups during the race. And here they are actually wearing all of their gaiters on their shoes to avoid sand from getting in.
So we have some incredible athletes here today from all around the world, and some of the athletes that I'm going to have my eyes on in the male field to start with, because that is who has set off. We can't start without mentioning Gregory Basilico from France. He's had an incredible year so far. He was the European Championship in 2024, European champ, second place at the Croatia Sprint. He is the reigning 23 and 24 trifecta world championship, and last year he came second place in this race. So he certainly has a great pedigree here, and we can see him there already at the front of the pack. But there's a lot of other incredible athletes here today, including Igor Belousov, Sergey Pereglin, and from Mexico, Eugenio Godinez, who is reasonably new on the European racing circuit. You can see him right there at the front. And there's so many more to mention who we will be seeing throughout this coverage.
Yes, that's going to be really exciting. We can see them already going over, under the first few obstacles, and we're going to have fairly quickly our first timing mats telling us who's already in the lead. Even though on a race that long and tricky, there might be some changes in the leaderboard during the whole coverage today.
Absolutely. We do have a bit of a well-known name, I would say, racing today. Coming from the USA is Hawk Call. You may know him as the son of Hobie Call.
Hobie Call was the legend in the early years of Spartan race. For those who remember that, he could win on every single distance and prevail, especially here on the Beast when a lot of running is involved.
So Eugenio, who we're seeing here up at the front, he was the 15K champion at OCRWC this year. So that was held in Mammoth Lakes, California. Also actually an incredibly dry and hot race. And he comes from Mexico. He placed first in the Mexico National Series. So he is an athlete with very good pedigree, and he has started out of the gates at full speed. I love events like this where you get all the athletes that you've been seeing across the last few years converging together. There are so many events, it can sometimes be hard to say who's going to place best where. But every athlete is different as well, and we all know they have their favorite distances.
Yeah, there's the distances, and again, we can't stress that enough today. There's the type of terrain as well. Looking at people who crushed it in a 3K race on the road is going to be a very little indication about their performance today. This is a much longer course, and look at this terrain. This is still fairly easy here because it's kind of rolling, the sand is still fairly light, but there are places where every step feels like you are actually moving backwards in the sand, and that's going to be very difficult.
You cannot underestimate the difficulty of running on sand. As you mentioned at the start, we can see they all look like they're wearing old-fashioned shoes. They've actually got gaiters on to stop the sand getting into their feet, into their shoes, which in itself can cause huge amounts of pain and discomfort, but they're all wearing these gaiters to cover their shoes, basically like socks over the top of their shoes, you could describe them as, to stop that. Oh, and here we go, the women are off already. I'm so excited about the women today. We have a few athletes, all of whom are incredibly well placed to win this race. And we can see right out at the front already is Nicole Miracle, who has had potentially the best year of her season so far. Every race, with the exception of one, she has placed first in. But as well as that, you know, we also have Elisa Petrova, an incredible athlete, Susanna Kokomova, Ulrika Evanson, and Esther Hortobagiova. Every single one of those has their strengths that could be at play here in this race and could see them taking first place. So this is going to be a battle. There's so much to talk about the women, and I'm so excited about them today.
Absolutely. When we saw in Morzine what Ulrika was showing us on a very long course, that's going to be really interesting to have this race, which is right in between all the format that Nicole has been dominating this year, and what Ulrika can do as well. So that might be an interesting fight.
Absolutely. Well, let's not forget Esther was the first place Spartan Beast winner here last year. She beat Lindsay Webster, who is the GOAT, we can say. She's not here this year, obviously, because she had a child. Congratulations to her and Ryan. But Esther is the reigning champ on this format in this location. But we cannot ignore the other female athletes who are here. We're seeing the same from Nicole as we've seen from her at every race she's taken on this year, which is leading out in the front and leading strong. Can she maintain this lead? What is going to happen? Susanna Kukumova is also here, who she raced against in Croatia on the Spartan Sprint. Talking about spear throws, it was at the spear throw where Nicole slipped from her first place leads and Susanna overtook. And then they had a fantastic battle on a short and difficult course where Nicole battled back for first place. It'll be interesting to see Susanna coming back and seeing how they compete here today.
Absolutely. And when the physical side, we've mentioned that with the difficulty of tackling such a long course and a tricky one with that much sand, there's the mental side of things that's going to play a big role as well in a race that is lasting more than in a couple hours. And I think what Nicole is doing is obviously smart. She knows she has the upper hand mentally, at least on the competition, with the impressive season that she's had. So starting out strong at the top and holding on even for the first few kilometers might be enough to send a strong message to the competition, like I'm here to play, I'm here to win, and sometimes it's enough to put a bit of a doubt already in the competition. So I think she's right to go all out from the start, even if she might be going a tad above what she could be doing, but I think it's a
We saw this
move.
from Ulrika, as you mentioned, in Morzine, which was a very long race with incredible terrain, and she went all out from the start. And we said, I remember saying at the time, she's going so fast, can she hold this for the whole race? And she did. And we've not seen Ulrika racing for quite a few months. She was meant to have a busy season. However, she had an injury and she has been out, so she missed a lot of the races, including Croatia and including OCRWC in Mammoth, that she was supposed to be at. However, this is the first time Ulrika and Nicole are going head-to-head since the FISO event in Costa Rica, where Ulrika did take first place. So this will be very interesting to see how they battle out here. Every race is a new day, a new course. I think those two athletes are incredibly well matched. However, I again don't want to ignore the other athletes who are there, who have an incredible chance as well to take first place. It's almost anyone's game today, looking at everyone's pedigree and history and what they have behind them.
Absolutely, we know anything can happen. If you look here, Nicole's struggling with a bit of the barbed wire. That just goes to show how anything can happen in those obstacles, and especially when you add that much sand.
That was Elisa taking her over, Elisa Petrova just overtaking her at the barbed wire call. Elisa also has some good experience running in the desert. Last weekend, she came first place at Empire Race. And she was also the first place winner at Lula Infinity that happened earlier this year. So she knows what she's doing when it comes to the desert, and she herself is also an incredible athlete.
I think we have an interview of Elisa that we might get to a bit later today. And we've had our first timing after the inverted walls. And as we've seen from the start, we have Eugenio Godinez and Gregory Basilico at the front. Yeah,
Eugenio Godinez from Mexico taking the first spot at the first timing mats. He went out like a bullet from a gun, followed by Gregory Basilico, who we cannot underestimate, and the aforementioned Hawk Call. Can he hold on for the remainder of the race? There are so many strong male athletes here today. It's going to be difficult to mention them all, to be honest. It is a very, very deep field of men. Thibaut Jean, it was fourth at the inverted wall, followed by Richard Hynek. Richard Hynek got a fourth place at the Croatia Sprint just a couple of weeks ago, and last weekend he came third at the Empire Race in the United Arab Emirates. Gregory has overtaken Eugenio there.
It's important to keep in mind with the specificity of that terrain that there is a added benefit of having been there before. So people who we know have performed on this course have a good chance of a strong showing as well.
Despite getting overtaken at the barbed wire crawl, Nicole has taken a lead there on Elisa and has pulled just ahead. Now, we talk about each athlete having a favoured distance, but it would be remiss to not mention that Gregory Basilico is the Trifecta World Championship 23 and 24. Now, that race, which happens in Sparta in Greece, next year will be moving to the United States, is a collection of all three distances, and that measures the championship champion across all of those distances. Gregory always performs well at that race, and this year he was again the champion. So he is able to win at all three distances, which is no mean feat. They are very, very different events.
Absolutely. And as we're seeing the female leaders at the moment, we can go to the interview of Elisa that was pre-recorded a bit before the race. So we'll head there in a minute.
I'll be training hard, so I hope that it will bring some benefits tomorrow, so we'll see. I know that the field is quite competitive. Nicole Miracle came, Susanna Kasumova, Esther also is here, and I think that the battle will be really hard and it won't be an easy race. And I am so afraid of these two sandbag carries.
Afraid of the two sandbag carries. That is a fair point. She's not wrong. It's going to be a tough battle. Like we said, there's no way to say which of these women will come out victorious. Every single one of them has the pedigree and the training and the strength to be able to place here. I'm usually pretty bold in my predictions on races. We can't ignore what Nicole has been doing this year, but we also cannot ignore any of these other women. Esther, for the reigning champ on this course. Elisa, the Infinity champion. Susanna, she's the 23 European Beast champion. And Ulrika, Morzine Ultra World champ. Every single one has several titles to their name.
I love those shots. If you look at those tiny hills, obviously it's a relatively flat course compared to what we've seen in Morzine earlier this season, for example.
I don't see a tiny
but
hill.
You should not be ignoring or disrespecting those tiny hills. I think we can say that when you're used to looking at mountain races, but this is tricky. If you go too fast,
you cannot underestimate the terrain here. The hills, yes, they're small so far. They will get bigger, but the sand is something totally different. There is something so difficult about moving through sand. And if you've never run on sand dunes or through the desert, it's a whole new experience. And some of these athletes will be moving slower than we're used to seeing, because it's such difficult terrain. It's different to mud, but you can probably say it's somewhat similar to that feeling. There we go. That's the third place female there. I think we're looking at Susanna Kokumova there.
Absolutely. Yes, we've had the first timing after the inverted wall, and you're right. It's Susanna in third place.
So the top 5 women through the inverted wall are Nicole Miracle, Elisa Petrova, Susanna Kokumova, Eloisa Godinez Romero, and Sabrina Daulio. Ulrika Evanson coming in 6th place at the inverted wall, with Esther Hortobayeva in 7th, which is unexpected, but there's still plenty of time for change. However, I feel like we are going to have a great battle between Nicole, Elisa, and Susanna, but there are some very big obstacles here on this course, including the much loved spear throw and burpees.
Something that we can see on a beast, and especially in a course like this, is fatigue being one of the biggest obstacles. In a smaller course, you get to see one of the tricky one, maybe the spear throw to be the decider. But here we can see some of the runners just slowing down based on how fast they started, if they started out a bit too fast. So I'm not too worried necessarily for runners in the second half of the top 10. If they are used to longer races, they can just hang in there when the other might actually slow down.
It's interesting to see how these athletes are moving, especially someone like Nicole that we've seen a lot this year. We've seen a lot of coverage this year. I've followed her on foot myself, and I can tell you she moves at incredible speeds. And whilst they're going to be moving incredibly fast here still, you can see they're just going slightly slower than they normally would in this kind of terrain. And, there is a lot of heat coming. The sand is incredibly difficult. We know we've got about 1,000 feet of elevation gain up and down a big sand dune. Are the athletes conserving energy, or is this the most that they can give right now?
There's a bit of both. I think they have enough experience. At least they should hopefully have enough experience to conserve some energy, especially as usual. There's a really obstacle heavy last few kilometers, so they need to keep some energy. And at the same time, this is the World Championships, so if you're keeping some energy, I mean, you're not going to take them with you in the winter break, right? So you're going to have to leave it all on the table today. It's just about when you do it exactly.
You do. But, we've seen a couple of races this year. We mentioned Ulrika at the Ultra World Champs. A lot of these athletes have gone out and they haven't been conserving energy. They are so strong, like so strong. I cannot emphasize enough how strong some of these athletes are. They've gone out at speeds that have felt unsustainable and yet have managed to keep going on incredibly challenging courses. So we've seen a lot of very bold performances in 2024.
Yes, that's where it's really so difficult, is you really have to be on the edge. You really have to be running thinking, can I keep this pace for the whole race? And you're not sure. And that's the thing is, I'll find out. And sometimes you find out just 20 minutes from the end and it's too late and you're getting too tired, but at least you gave it a shot and you don't have any regret. So it's trying to find the balance between not taking too much risk and ensuring that you don't have any regrets from not trying enough.
Yes.
That's true, obviously, for really the strongest competitors, right? For our elite runners, this is where they have to play. For anybody listening who is trying their first Spartan race or even the 10th or 20th Spartan race, especially if it's a beast, I would always recommend being on the conservative side. And if you have some energy in the second half, then you can give it a go. But taking this kind of risk is good only for elite runners who know themselves by heart.
Elisa is really on Nicole's tail here. She is pushing her, and I don't think Nicole has really seen much competition like this year. Nicole is used to being the one who's chasing down Lindsay. And, she came back from knee surgery a couple of years ago and took a very slow and sensible return to strength, including a lot of ice climbing. She was really a great example of how to return to sport after injury. And she's not had somebody challenging her quite like this, quite like Elisa is today. So I'm going to be very interested to see how that continues across this race.
That's a very good point. We talked about the mental side of things, of trying to take the lead and show everybody that she's the boss. But that's true also for the competition, who might actually be following her and say, no, you're not the boss. This is open, it's up for grabs, and I'm going to give you a good race. So I think it's a strong message sent from Elisa.
Now, Elisa did place first at the Alula Infinity, so that's a Tough Mudder event. That happened earlier this year in February in Alula, but Nicole was second behind her. So they have already battled it out against each other this year.
In a similar terrain somehow. It was
In a similar
definitely
terrain, but
sandy
with
in
Elisa
Alula.
taking one whole lap ahead of Nicole, which is not to be sniffed at. She's a strong
Absolutely.
athlete. She's an incredibly strong and competent athlete. And she said, you know, I've trained hard and I'm here, you know, ready to take the championship.
And if she has that kind of endurance that you know that she's probably not going to be slowing down today, anything can happen, of course, but she may just knowing and going exactly at a pace that is sustainable for her.
Yes.
Unless, again, she's getting to the red zone by trying to keep up with Nicole no matter what. We'll see a bit later. Look at this hill. This shows you can't imagine how hard it is. Look at him. There's so much energy spent in...
You cannot imagine how hard it is going up those sand dunes. When you see athletes like, which we have in the past, we've seen Ryan on his hands and knees, which is almost impossible to crawl up these sand dunes on your hands and knees, but still the pitch being such and the terrain being such that you have no choice but to try that, you know that that is very, very difficult terrain. When you see athletes like this, I don't want to use the word struggling, but being tested in this way, you know this is tough. And I love that
really
this sport and that in this brand you have the opportunity, both as a pro athlete but an open, you know, all the way down to whoever's going to cross the finish line coming in last place has this opportunity to take part in such diverse courses, from the deserts to the mountains, from California to the United Arab Emirates. You know, there's so many different races that they can be taking part in.
Absolutely, that's what's so fantastic. From the first days of Spartan race, that's what everybody enjoyed, is having the chance to go across the country, across the world, and see these kind of places.
Elisa is really on Nicole's tail here. This is incredible to see.
Next few obstacles that they're going to be going up and down, as we discussed before, is those massive sand dunes that they're going to be going up and down until they reach, I think, Armor, and then the Irish tables are going to be the next two obstacles for our runners.
Yeah, if you look at the elevation on the course, you're a guy who runs in the mountains. What are your feelings on this elevation?
Well, again, if it was a not so sandy course, it'd be all right. The elevation is not too bad. If you look on the video, if you look as well on the map, it's really fine. Those are indeed tiny hills. Now, the sand makes it so much trickier. And that's where you can actually waste so much energy trying to push a little bit more, trying to save a few seconds. But on those hills, when the sand is really deep, that's where you got to be humble and accept that everybody's going to drop a few seconds, and it's fine, and not trying to waste too much energy. And I think it's definitely important on those steep ones. Not here where we see the two female runners at the front, but when you go a bit further and you have a really steep climb, then take the extra seconds, but keep the energy. Don't waste that there.
what point we are of the race?
Zone 4. Zone 4.
Zone 4. It's the end of the race. And where do I have to go?
I don't know.
So we had a very quick peek at the men. I think we're coming back to them now, and it looks like Gregory is still in the lead. There's a great mix of nations here today, from the USA over to Europe and Mexico. It's a great championship coverage, and again, you know, we can't underestimate some of the athletes out there. We mentioned Gregory, we mentioned Eugenio, Igor Belousov, he came first place last weekend at the Empire Race. Sergei Pereglin, he's the 2022 Spartan World Champion. Hawk Call, we spoke about the son of the legendary Hobie Call, Richard Hynek, who has been a steady champion on the scene for many years. He came fourth at the Croatia Sprint, coming back from an injury, and was the trifecta world champ in 19 and 2022. Brendan Neely from Canada is a relatively new name to the Europeans here today. He came first in the Canadian National Series and second in the Pan American Champs. I think this is going to be a very strong field here. Gregor Schlettler, he has lots of titles to his name and is also a very, very strong athlete. We can't have this race without mentioning the Dane Leon Cofford. He's the 3K OCRWC world champion and came third in the 15K. Also here's Jan Vladar from Slovakia, and let's mention as well David Labos from France, who we often see as a rabbit on the team here.
Yeah, I think in this kind of world championship these days, you can go down to people in the 5th, 10th, 15th, or 20th place and still see a really impressive resume.
I mean, we still have more men that we could talk about who are going to. Thibaut Jean, another Frenchman, you know, the second in the European Champ. There is no end here of a competitive field for the men of who could be placing in the top three. I get very used to athletes wearing certain items of clothing. And once you can get very used to certain things like athletes' gait, you can recognize them by and other such things. In this terrain, it can be difficult to see by the way the athlete's moving, but I'm used to what they wear. And I'm used to Gregory wearing black arm sleeves, not white.
I think with the sun here, it might be a good choice to go with the white indeed. I think a minute ago you just mentioned Igor Belousov, and I think we have an interview from Igor that we can go to.
Fantastic.
Feeling good, and I wait this race 3 years because my last World Championship, it was 2021, and it's not good for me. I'm sure this year it will be a great race. It will be interesting race, and of course it will be a tough race for all us. It's many guys. It's Richard Hynek, it's Sergei Pereglin, it's Hawk. I don't remember his name, but I'm sure it's a strong guy. Many guys from French, Thibaut, David, Gregory, Basilico. Really, it's so much people, and who can win, who can fight to podium. And I'm sure to spectaculars it will be an interesting race. I hope we can make this race is interesting.
Great.
The usual suspects.
The usual suspects.
Yeah, it becomes now those world championships becomes really a who's who of obstacle racing. Some of the best guys out there, and
some of the best guys out there.
And it's what's really mentally what's really impressive when you're an elite runner like this is your confidence level usually is off the chart, right? Those people are used to winning, or at least having a top place in any of the regional competitions that they might be running here and there. And they're getting in most of those races being the top dog. And then when they get to the World Championships and Spartan races, they look around and everybody's a top dog. And that's what's really tricky. And it starts playing a little bit on your mind, because usually you get somewhere and okay, I'm fairly confident that I should be in the top 3, top 5 maybe. And then you get there and you see all those names that he was mentioning. And you could see in Igor's eyes, he had names and names and names. And
name after name after name.
Yeah, and
He couldn't keep up with how many names there were. He was like, even just the French. There's so many of them. So the men have gone through the second timing mat, which is the rope wall. And still in first place is Gregory Basilico from France. But in second place is a name that hasn't been mentioned, which is Ismail Razali from Marrakesh. From Morocco, I'm afraid. And then in third place, Hawk Gall, as we've mentioned a few times, somebody that we're very excited to see racing today. Familiar names after that: Thibaut Jean, Eugenio Godinez, Richard Hynek, Jean Vidar, David Lacourse, Peter Saniga, and David Liu. The names to its top: Angel Quintero, Sergei Pereglin, Gregors Schletzler, Richard Trapp. There's name after name after name of strong athlete here that you know from their performances. The men's field is so deep.
Absolutely, and it's really interesting to see Ismail Razali second place. Again, that's almost a local in terms at least of the type of terrain and type of weather that we can see, and that's really interesting. There's a couple of races in the trail running and ultra running scene that happen also in the desert like this, in sand, and it's usually locals that prevail, who may not be the fastest one in terms of pure fitness, but the knowledge of how to handle those dunes is coming in really handy. So
but this is where the obstacles come into play. This is where the obstacles happen and where the obstacles change things. And the obstacles we've seen so far have not been massively testing obstacles. They've been, the smaller rope climb. You need to know how to do a rope climb, but most people remember from being a kid. We've not seen anything that's going to be changing the game massively here yet. There are some things that are very specific obstacles that you need to have done your grip training for, or you need to know the technique for. And you can be an incredible runner, but without those obstacles, you're going to be in trouble. And we talk about the spear throw a lot. The spear throw can change races, and that can often feel like an obstacle that's almost untrainable. It can change on the day. Athletes prepare and prepare and prepare, and sometimes it just feels like what's happening on the day. And they've brought the burpees back for that obstacle. He is running barefoot.
Wow.
Talking about gaiters, sometimes if you're familiar enough with the terrain, you can run barefoot. Wow. Oh my gosh, look at this.
Oh, and then look at this. Yeah.
Gregory almost kind of had to think how to do this.
Makes sense.
Just goes to show when you're not familiar with how an obstacle is working, how do you do it? He's spent, quite a bit of time working that out. Does Gregory Basilico know how to do a cargo net fall? Of course he does. Does he know how to do it going downhill on a sand dune? Well, no, that looked a little bit tricky.
He had to double check for sand on his glasses at the end of that cargo net crawl. But that's smart. Look, it took him a few seconds to understand, and he again kept his cool, his composure. Took it a bit longer maybe to do the cargo net, but it didn't spend too much energy, and look how he's running right after it. The pace he's having now is incredible. Incredible.
As always, I want to give a shout out to the rabbits who are out there running. Incredible athletes in their own right who keep up with these athletes and run the course with them. It is no mean feat, and thanks to them we get this great footage. They are there out on their feet.
And I can tell you, we talked about the specificity of running in the sand, and the rabbits in this course, they're not just hired based on their fitness level. Oh, can you run fast? But there's another question in the kind of qualification process. Can you run fast on sand? it really is different. So it's
Wait,
not necessarily
there's
the,
another qualification. Can you run fast on sand and film?
yeah, oh, of course, absolutely.
Which is not easy.
That's their own obstacle. So I think Gregory already had a 1 minute 30 lead over Ismail after only
Yes.
half an hour of the race. We talked
Yeah.
about the obstacle intensive end of the race, the beginning. Now for the next, I think another 20 to 30 minutes is going to be really running intensive, and we know how fast Gregory is, so that's why potentially
Yeah.
it can take that much of a lead. And then we're going to end up with the second half much more obstacle intense.
Yeah, and then after that, the next few men, we're looking at 23, 27, 29 seconds for the next men coming through the rope wall. The top 7 men from 2 to 7, so not including Gregory, are all within 30 seconds of each other.
What a showdown.
There's a quick shot of David Labrosse, who was in 8th place at the rope wall. And here we are back with the women. Nicole, how close are we seeing Elisa behind Nicole?
They should be getting fairly soon to that second timing mat after the rope pull. So we'll get a bit more info there.
Yeah, Gregory's running here is incredibly strong, which I do not say that to mean to sound surprised, because we know he is one of the strongest athletes out here. But talking about the terrain, if you don't know what you're doing here,
yeah.
This is where, if you're a pure runner, despite knowing the location, if you don't know what you're doing here, you're going to be in trouble, because this is more than just grip strength. This is a whole host of skills going in to be able to do this obstacle. You know, we're not talking regular monkey bars here.
No, absolutely. And if you look at the strategy, he started at the beginning by skipping every other bar, then realized it might be costing him a little bit too much energy, especially if you're losing the momentum. So then he kind of took a minute and grabbed every single bar on the second half. And again, that's a very efficient way to go across the obstacle.
I love obstacles like that, where there's a change to a very classic simple obstacle, and the change is very simple in itself to create something totally different. So if you take regular monkey bars, everyone's got their preferred techniques of regular monkey bars, whether it's wide swings and skipping, whether it's hand to hand in the rain, everyone has their preferred techniques. We saw there one of the strongest athletes, because of the way that the holds on the ape hanger will move, you know, he had to be able to balance himself, and the large gap in the middle, small things. Look at Elisa challenging Nicole here on this hill. Small things that mean, right, I have to adapt how I'm doing this obstacle, and I have to adapt on the move. It's one of the oldest obstacles in the book, yet you make a change and it's something totally new, and new technique is needed.
Absolutely. At the second timing mat before the rope wall, Nicole and Elisa were 2 seconds apart. I mean, as we can see on the feed, they're just running neck and neck. And then we had Susanna about a minute behind.
Susanna really challenged Nicole in Croatia. Croatia Sprint World Championships is the first time that race was held in Hvar, and it was an incredible race. Susanna was on Nicole's tail the whole time. Overtook at the spear throw when Nicole missed the spear throw, so that will be interesting to see what happens there today. She really, really pushed her, and Nicole had to work very, very hard to regain first place in that race. And it was a totally different race. There was long swims, for example, which is very different to what we'll be seeing here today. But, you know, it goes to show the strength of the athlete that we have here in this field.
I think a bit later on, when it gets even hotter, they would be dying for a swim here in the desert, but no such luck.
Okay. Yeah, you can see we've got a lot of timing mats out today, which is a great way to keep on track. If anyone wants to check, the results are online, so you can keep track of the pro athletes or your own athletes. They're at myraceresult.com. But we can see Susanna, yes, she moved into third place here, really going for the podium. And in the men, they have gone through 8 hanger, which is another timing mat, as we saw Gregory Basilico in first place, followed by Ismail Zani and Thibaut Jaune.
And they are, all within a few seconds. So 2 minutes behind Gregory, and then
Eugenio Godinez from Mexico did start out very strong in first place, currently sitting in 5th. But we are still talking seconds between first place and 5th. 9 seconds between, third place and 5th. And still within the same minute between seconds. So there's a lot to play for the podium. I would say, we don't know what's going to happen in this race. There are always changes that could happen. Gregory has taken an incredible lead. Something big would happen for him to not be holding on to that. Currently, he is not being challenged.
I think he might get challenged a bit later on. We have a couple of heavy carries. There's a double sandbag carry with the plate drag in the middle. That's the kind of thing where we know how good he is. Running is obviously extremely strong as well on the obstacles, but I don't think people can actually catch up to him via just simple running. So they have to hope that maybe he falters a little bit on the obstacles and they have a chance at catching him, because 2 minute lead after a half-hour race is quite impressive. And you see how
It's quite impressive.
dense the field is.
Oh, this field is so deep. So with the obstacles here on the Spartan race, we have penalty loops for the obstacles. It's kind of a one try and go. A valid attempt is required on the obstacles, and each one has its own requirements, as it were. You can't just pretend and then go, I'm going to do the penalty loop. Especially if you're competing, you need to make a concerted effort to try the obstacle. And if you fail, you get one chance, and if you fail, you do a penalty loop. Aside from, as mentioned, the spear throw, which is one try, and then it's 30 burpees, which is a really time and labor intensive punishment for failing the spear throw, which technically could be an incredibly quick obstacle, which takes practically no physical effort or no physical cost. And that's, we've said it before, I'll say it again, we see a lot of changes happening at the spear throw, but with the burpees coming back as the penalty over a penalty loop, if you're a strong runner, a penalty loop, even with a crawl in it, is very fast. But burpees, they're never fast, are they? That's why we hate them. That's why we love them.
Don't worry, they hate you too. But yeah, absolutely. That's kind of the double whammy of you're not only wasting time but also valuable energy. Oh, look at that! They're going to be together. I think if they're smart, they're going to try to work it. Yeah, that's what they're doing, right next to each other.
This is going to be very difficult for those men at the 2nd to 7th, as they're all so close together. But yeah, this is they're neck and neck.
They probably helped each other out when they're together. That's what we're seeing here. The top guys after Gregory probably helped each other. That's the kind of thing where it's the kind of obstacles they should try to save a few seconds on Gregory at the front, because when you're going in there together, it's several people trying to lift the net at the same time, and it makes it so much easier. We could see that they struggled much less than Gregory did when he was on his own. And I mean, company is always present.
Yeah. I'm not sure I've seen, we've spoken about Alula where Elisa took a whole extra lap on Nicole. But in the races that I have seen Nicole at this year, I've not seen her be challenged this closely when she has been in the lead. And this is the great thing about having this coverage. A lot of races don't have such in-depth coverage as this. And whilst, we're not showing the whole field, which we would love to, but is incredibly difficult, it's great to be able to see what is happening real time with the athletes, minute by minute out on the course.
Yeah, it allows us to really feel like we're running the course with them. Look at this. We see Gregory being the first one to actually leave his marks in the sand. That's pretty exciting. He's getting there almost like a fresh snow when you're getting out there skiing, the first one in the morning in the mountain. And it's like the first one to leave his mark on the sand. And the rabbit behind, wishing that Gregory could slow down a little bit, but I don't think it's an option. Look at this, going up in the sun like this. It's so impressive, the pace.
Oh, it's so impressive.
And again, we're talking about somebody who has a lot of experience. So it's not just going out there too strong. This is the kind of pace and intensity that we will be able to keep for the whole race. And we have another interview. I think we mentioned Sergei Pereligin before, and I think we have an interview of Sergei coming up.
Oh, I feel good. Right now, but on the race I think it will hard for me, but I don't know my shape. I hope it will good. I will feeling good. If it will like this, I will hide and can fighting for the win and for the podium. Yeah, now I understand. I like it, but still it will hard. I know. Oh, I think I not have finger how much athletes come strong. I think we can have surprise and new name on podium.
So that is Sergei, who's currently sitting in 12th place. He is the 2022 Spartan World Champion, and as mentioned, he came second last weekend at the Empire Race. Also husband of Elisa Petrova. I love to see these OCR couples.
They were sharing a few tips. They've been here for a few days, training and getting acquainted with the weather and the sand everywhere. They were sharing a few details on social media recently.
So we're here covering this is the Beast World Championship. As we mentioned, Spartan has a really wide and diverse championship schedule. This weekend is the Beast and the Team World Championship. We mentioned the Trifecta World Championship, which this year was in Sparta, Greece. Next year moves to the United States. The Sprint and 100-meter championship happened in Croatia this year. The Ultra World Championships happened in Morzine, and next year we're going to see the Super World Championships, which is going to be taking place in Mammoth Lakes, California in October, kind of filling out the classic Spartan distances of championship events. But there are also a lot of other things happening this weekend at this race, which is hosted by the Abu Dhabi Sports Council, including a women's only sprint race, women's only night race, which happened on Thursday night. Open only to women, half of it filmed, half of it not filmed, which gives a great opportunity for women to take part in sport where they may not want to otherwise or may not be available to them, especially in this region. So that's super cool and a really great event, but plenty of other things happening. This is a full trifecta weekend and kids race. Yeah, there's a lot happening here. So even if you weren't coming to race the Beast World Championship, this is a really great location with a different kind of race that you're not just going to get every weekend. Something really, really special and a very, very beautiful location.
That's what is so exciting with the diversity in Spartan races, that everybody can meet around a Spartan race. No matter where you're coming from, no matter your age, no matter the kind of sports that you prefer, if you're more of a runner, more of a strong man or woman. And again, whether you're men, women, kid, you can come here with your grandma, and just both can be running and having a good time. So.
And people do, another race that is the World's Toughest Mudder, which just happened, and people travel with their whole families and get support and pit crew. There are so many different ways that people can take part together and support each other. But saying that, if you are here as a competitor ready to take championship crown, we would be remiss not to mention the prize purse, which is a total of $90,000 here today. First place, male and female, each have a prize pot of $25,000. Second place, $15,000, and third place, $7,500. So you can see, the battle between Elisa and Nicole. It might only be a few seconds, but it's $10,000.
Yeah, absolutely. That raises the stakes. What I really liked when we could see them just right now on the ape hanger is you could see when they are neck and neck, you can see the difference. Of course, you're never going to have a runner that saves a whole minute on an obstacle like this. But Alisa was actually probably 2 or 3 seconds ahead of Nicole getting in that obstacle, and she left 2 or 3 seconds behind. And seeing them neck and neck allowed us to see that Nicole was actually getting significantly faster and therefore spending a bit less energy on the obstacle. And that's something that you cannot see if they're not really neck and neck and taking on the obstacle at the same time. So that's what I really enjoyed seeing.
And talking about ape hanger, we have a bit more data coming through from there. Esther has moved into 4th place at the ape hanger. Now, Esther, I like to call her the engine that could. She is a fantastic athlete. This distance is her bag. She just goes. She starts and she is steady, and she does not stop. Seeing her move up higher through the ranks is not a surprise. And honestly, for me, she's always one of the top picks. I would be very surprised to not see her in the top 3. However, the competition is so fierce, it's kind of a hard claim to make. But on this distance, when I see her name, I think she's got to be up there. I don't know what her year has been like, however. There are a few races we've not seen her at that we expected to see her at. I'm not sure if she doesn't talk a lot on social. She's often quite quiet, so we don't know if she's been going through injury or anything like that. But normally, at full strength, she's one that can be challenging the top spot easily. Easily. She won last year.
Absolutely. That's why when we could see her in 6th or 7th position a few minutes ago, we are not too worried. The race is long enough that she can get up the ranks. She's already 4th and only about 20 seconds behind Susanna. Now, if you saw just before, we had Gregory on such a steep, sandy hill that he had to crawl almost and use his hands in front of him. That gives you an idea. The camera doesn't show exactly, doesn't do it justice, because it makes it look a bit flatter than it actually is. But when you see a guy almost standing upright extending his arms in front of him and just touching sands, you know that it's super, super steep. But he was smart. Again, he didn't try to push too fast. Took a few seconds. He knows he's in the lead. He has to really race smart from now on.
Putain, moi j'ai mon casque choc, là, il va couper, il est déjà à plus de batterie là.
It's not often, even on mountainous terrain, very steep mountainous terrain, that you see athletes of this kind of scrambling.
Yeah. Makes the rest of us feel like they're human after all.
I do recommend anyone who's not been, even just been to the desert, good desert. I think it's one of the most beautiful places. There are so many things there that you don't experience anywhere else. The night sky, you will see stars like you've never seen before in the desert. The absolute silence that you get in the middle of the desert is incredible. The heat, the smell, everything is such a new experience. So even if you're not going somewhere to take part in an event, it's an experience to be able to be there, to get this opportunity to access this kind of place is incredible. Oh gosh, these two are really battling it out. This is such a great recap.
Yes, Thibaut Jean here. He was also... Oh yeah, he's actually... Looks like he's actually in second place behind Gregory at the armor. We've seen...
Oh, fantastic.
Gregory.
That has just updated.
And then Eugenio
Thibaut's a
just
great
behind.
athlete. Thibaut came second
Again.
at the Spartan Ultra World Champs this year in Morzine, and also second at the European Champs. He's got a great caliber. He's a strong athlete. Another French athlete, so we have two French taking the lead, which I'm sure you're very happy about.
I'm staying neutral and objective, but yes.
Eugenio Godinez in third place at Armour. He's coming in, that's 7 seconds behind Thibaut, followed by Hawk Call and Jan Vladar. We do have our top 9 athletes through Armour in the men. So from first, Gregory Basilico, Thibaut Jean, Eugenio Godinez, Hawk Call, Jan Vladar, David Labrosse, Richard Hynek, Ismail Ritzali and Peter Siniga. So Ismail, who we were talking about, who's an unknown name to me, I must say, has dropped from second place down to 8th by this timing mat, which, you mentioned about the more local athletes, obviously not particularly local, but potentially more familiar with the type of terrain. We are unsure of his obstacle heritage and how he might be taking on these obstacles, but it is anyone's game. However, I would be very, very surprised to see an unknown name in this male field taking a top spot, as there are so many strong athletes who we've seen time and time again performing.
Absolutely. And I think there's something interesting about Thibaut coming to that second place. We talked about the importance of being a specialist in this kind of course, right? Especially with the distance and with the sand, knowing the terrain and being familiar on it. And if you're looking at the front runners, both in the male and female field, we had at the Alula Tough Mudder Infinity earlier this season, we had indeed Alisa and Nicole taking the first 2 spots in the individual ranking in the women's. And it turns out that Gregory and Thibaut were running together in the team event and actually won the team event in Alula. So we had John Albin or Ryan Atkins on the individual side who are not racing today. But it's interesting to see that the first 2 men and first 2 women, they're quite familiar with this kind of terrain. And it's not that surprising to see them perform well.
And we saw there a bit of a battle between Thibaut Jean and Eugenio Guinness, kind of overtaking each second. It could be an interesting battle for second and third. Although Thibaut has moved up the rankings quite a lot, so whether he can continue and overtake more will be interesting to see. Both incredibly strong athletes. Eugenio's had some really great results in the last few years, so I'm not discounting anyone here.
If you're seeing some of the big trash cans in the middle of the desert, might look a bit surprising. It's actually, as you could see with Gregory right now, they're getting some of the water bottles to get a bit of water on the face, but mostly to drink, obviously, and it's important to drop them in the appropriate trash bag. It's the kind of the green minute here, and in the feed we see all too often in trail running or in Spartan racing, people dropping their water bottles or their gels and their packs everywhere, littering the course, and we don't want, when we see this kind of places so beautiful, it's up to all of us to protect them.
I mean, I know at
Protect your own
OCWC,
crate,
and
understand.
it's that's grounds for disqualification.
Absolutely. In most races, it's the case.
As it should be. And, you know, I know that the Spartan team behind these events are so conscious of their impact on the environment. Certain race directors especially are really, really careful about what they leave behind. And you can see, you know, there's very little tape used, because any tape that is used, there's a risk of it going elsewhere. But it's really important in these kind of areas, everywhere in the world, obviously, but especially these very untouched areas, to be very careful about leaving no trace. And if you are someone who is out on the trails or out on the course, it is part of your duty to respect that. So, a good point that I appreciate. Thank you, Nathan.
Especially the case when, you know, we're going higher and higher in the mountains, and we've seen that a lot with the extra coverage we have recently on the Himalayas, some of the ascent of Everest or these kind of places, which is absolutely filled with litter, and that doesn't go away. Even what's supposed to go away because it's so cold, it just stays for years and decades.
So for the women's side, we've also had the top 10 women go through on 8 hanger. I will read them out. Interesting to see Ulrika Evanson in 9th place. Now, we know that she has missed a few events due to injury. She's had a tough year. She dislocated her elbow, came back from that for the Ultra World Champs, but has had leg problems, which saw her pulling out of Croatia, OCRWC, and World's Toughest Mudder. World's Toughest Mudder is one of her favourite events. She's, you know, managed to get here for the Spartan Beast World Championship, but currently sitting in 9th place, which is very, very unexpected. Crossing 8 hanger first was Elisa Petrova, followed 2 seconds behind by Nicole Miracle. As we know, those two have been battling shoulder to shoulder. 3rd place, Susanna Kokomova. 4th place, Esther Hotubayeva. 5th place, Eloisa Godinez Romero. In 6th place, Leslie Lejeune. 7th place, Sabrina Daolio. Struggling with her name, Daolio. 8th, Sandy Menchin Abahan. I think she came 3rd on, 2nd or 3rd last year. 3rd on the Beast World Championship here. And 9th place, Ulrika Evanson and Jolanta Papior in 10th.
Alexis, elles vont sauter la base en haut ou en bas? À quel endroit elles vont sauter?
Gregory has hit Irish tables, the first athlete through there, currently still sitting in 1st place. He is having a very strong race, which is not really a surprise to anyone, but there are so many strong athletes, as we said at the beginning of anyone's game, but not a surprise to see Gregory doing so well. Irish tables is obstacle 14 of 32. The final few obstacles, 27 to 32, are very closely grouped together. So we are almost halfway in terms of obstacle numbers, but that doesn't mean we're almost halfway in distance.
Yeah, the Irish tables, I think, yeah, runner 2, 3, 4, 5 were within 20 seconds of each other. And 20 more seconds, we have 2 more runners. It's quite impressive. David Labrosse, indeed, getting up to 6th place, passing Richard Hynek. The density, so it's quite impressive. Gregory has a 4-minute lead over a group of almost 10 runners that are within a minute. It's that goes to show, right? Those 10 runners, they cannot drop each other. They're so close together, and then there's one guy just flying over the sand 4 minutes ahead. That's
And Irish tables is mile 7 of this race. Mile 7 of about 13.
That's about halfway almost, yeah. More than halfway. Couple more up and down in the sun and in the sand, and then we'll get to the slightly more obstacle heavy part of the course.
Which obstacles out of the ones that we're seeing today do you think could be the ones where we see some breaking of the pack? Or do you think any of them is gonna have that impact?
I mean, there might be a couple of runners that can either get out of the group by the front or by the back, but it's just so dense. If you look at, we have within 2 minutes there's a dozen runners. It's gonna stay packed. I don't think it's gonna explode. I mean, it's the level is too high to see everybody crumble. They're all familiar with those obstacles. And if you remember, I mean, it was a sprint, obviously, but if you remember in Croatia, how tight it was towards the end. They were there within a few seconds, and we had like 10 runners arrive within a minute. And I think it might.
Well, interestingly,
stay
in
very,
Croatia, we had a very long swim followed by a rig. So we also had athletes trying to dry their hands before getting on the obstacle, which it can be down to seconds. That was taking more than seconds. Are we going to have something like, obviously we're not going to have the same situation. Are we going to have something that impacts in that way? As I've mentioned about 50 times already, the spear throw. The spear throw could change the game almost entirely. Could second place catch up with first place if Gregory missed the spear throw and second place got it? Depends. I mean, right now, no, but depends what happens in the rest of the race.
Absolutely. But a spear throw, even the burpees, usually for those guys, the burpees take less than 2 minutes. So it is a strong penalty, and you lose a little bit of energy, but it's still about 2 minutes. So if you have a 3, 4, 5 minute lead, it's really,
I wonder if
comfortable.
he's building up a burpee-proof lead. Do you think that's what he's attempting here?
Yeah, it could be. Absolutely. But I think, that sandbag carry with the plate drag in the sand can be interesting as well. Some of the other obstacles usually, they make light work of it, right? For thinking about something like the Olympus or the Z wall or the Achilles hoist that are coming, those are not obstacles that are usually making a difference for the elite runners. For the
and especially
amateur
dry
runner,
weather.
sure. Yeah.
If we were talking heavy rain, that's one thing. If we're talking the ultra, where athletes are taking on a couple of obstacles 2 or 3 times, we were seeing in Mausian athletes failing obstacles by the third go, second go. But this is a very different race. That was 56 kilometers. This is 21.
Absolutely.
Là, elle est deux là.
So I think
Nicole
from what
taking
we've
a
seen
few
so
seconds
far,
to walk before running. A larger gap there between Nicole and Elisa than we've seen yet.
crawling up the. But they're going, they're neck and neck. They're going a few seconds away from each other every time. So yeah, we'll see the carries. I think there's one bucket carry. There's 2 sandbag carry, including again one that's a double sandbag carry with the plate drag. So I think that's where potentially there could be a difference, and then the spear throw, obviously. The rest of it is fairly comfortable for those guys. So it might be interesting to see for the rest of the top 10, because it's going to be a matter of seconds. Now for Gregory, who has a 4-minute lead, we're not even talking about seconds anymore.
Elisa has pulled ahead a little bit here. They're not as neck and neck as they were.
Indeed, it's not more than 10 seconds, but could be enough to have Nicole doubt a little bit.
And we saw Susanna Kokomova in 3rd place as well. She's running a really strong race. As we've mentioned, she's already, a strong athlete with a great pedigree. She's been around a long time. But she really gave Nicole a run for her money in Croatia. The athletes using the water just as much to drench themselves as they are to hydrate.
Absolutely.
I'm
That's something
surprised
really...
a lot of the athletes not wearing sunglasses.
In the morning, the sun is not necessarily too strong, so that might be what they're seeing. If they've been here for a couple of days and they realize that it may not be too strong.
Look at that speed.
Look at that.
Look at that speed.
Okay, that's going downhill.
Wow.
But still, it's
yeah, but
unbelievable.
still, downhill on sand.
Unbelievable.
Gregory is not an athlete to be messed with. I'll give you a quick update in the next minute or so on the top 10 men as they get through the water station timing mat. You see there Nicole's accolades underneath her, not including the Croatia champion. She has collected championship after championship after championship this year. She's had a really busy year, starting back in February with Alula, where she took 2nd place. And she's just gone from strength to strength, also known as well, I must mention, for supporting female athletes in the sport. When she was out with knee injury, she set up the Dream Team, which is designed to foster female talent. And, the female competition is fantastic, but there's never any problem with getting more women in. And all the brands are very keen to get more women, get the female race deeper, get more women taking part in these events. We definitely need that. So a big shout out to Nicole for doing that. So top 10 men through the water station timing mats. Gregory Basilico in 1st place with a 4-minute lead on 2nd place, who is Eugenio Godinez from Mexico. Almost neck and neck is 3rd place Thibaut Jean, followed by Jean Vladar about 30 seconds behind. Richard Hynek in 5th, David Labrosse in 6th, Peter Saniga 7th, Hawk Hall from the USA in 8th, David Liu in 9th, and Gregor Schletzler in 10th. Sergei Pereglin has also just gone through. He's in 11th, I will mention.
We see a little bit of a gap forming again at the end of that group, and that's how it goes, right? Now we have 2nd place to 8th place within a minute, and every now and then we're dropping a runner that's going 1 minute behind, and that's how it works. But I expect number 2, 3, 4 to battle it out until the end, and it should be very very tight for the podium.
rapproche.
There's indeed quite a bit of a gap. Again, it's not much, probably 10, 15 seconds now for Elisa. But there is really the, I think, the memory of Alula earlier this season, where, again, the terrain is similar, and she knows that on the long run, she can actually stay ahead of Nicole. And I think that's what she is trying to get back to in her mind right now.
Ah oui, là, j'ai un débit.
Trying to get the confidence that, yeah, she's at her place, and she can definitely hold on.
T'as compris, Alexis?
I think I say this all the time, but it's always worth mentioning. When you see athletes who are this skilled, you don't realize how tough these obstacles are. It's like when people say in the Olympics you should get to see a regular human take sport, so you see. I mean, that is a really tough obstacle. Olympus is, in the rain, it can be a lot harder, you know, when it's very dry, but you can see the control and mastery that the athletes have over their bodies with the ease that they move through these obstacles, which just for the regular human are really, really difficult.
There's the strength, obviously. There's the mobility that helps as well. That helps you, for example, specifically in this obstacle, that helps you raise your feet a bit higher up. If you can't even
Yes.
move your feet up, it gets a bit harder on your arms. So the idea is, the more mobility you have and the less strength you need to use. Those guys, obviously, they have both strength and mobility, so that helps. And then there's the technique as well. And same, the technique helps you need a bit less of the strength and the mobility. On all those obstacles, it's usually the same, as the technique helps you not having to use that much energy. And that's what we see. Those guys, they have much more strength and more energy than most people. And on top of it, they have a much better technique, so they don't even need to use that energy. So yeah, the look and feel of those obstacles, when you look at the top runners and the amateur runners, it's night and day for sure.
Absolutely. So we saw Elisa go through the Irish tables there, which is another timing mat. And I have my eyes on the live timings to see when Nicole is going through, because currently we had seen them on shoulder to shoulder, neck and neck. But Elisa had pulled away ahead of Nicole not that long ago. I'm interested to see how big a gap that is and can she maintain it.
So we've seen them. So I think it was Elisa and Nicole both carrying a belt with a couple of gels. We're getting to an event now when it's over a couple hours where fueling is definitely important. Can you go the whole race without an extra bit of energy, without the fuel, without gels or anything like this? Yes, you can. But is it optimal? No, it's not. And that would be the difference between somebody who can keep their energy for the whole race and somebody who maybe gets tired 20 minutes from the end. And that's the difference that one gel could make. So again, for the amateur, it's fine if you're not playing to the second, even though you would be more comfortable running with a bit of extra fuel. But at this level, yeah, one gel or a bit of fuel, a bit of water could be the difference between first place and second place. And we've seen that difference.
I mean, is there any risk in taking on extra nutrition? You know, if it's something that you know is not going to make you ill, that you know that you work well with your body, is there any risk in having it over not having it?
No, there's no risk in having it. If you need to train with it, obviously, because if you can have some stomach issues with something that you've never tried before, and then that could be, I mean, there's no no danger to your health, obviously, but that could actually be blocking you from performing and from being able to keep running. So that's why you always need to train with. We say we never try anything new during the race. That's true with the gear.
Yes.
No new shoes on race day, etc. But that's also true with fueling, right? You don't want to go. Sometimes what happens is people discover something the day before the race. Oh, that looks like interesting new gel or
Oh, yeah.
drinks or whatever, and then you try it on the day. Of course, it can work at times, but then if you have a problem with it, you know where it's coming
The
from.
risk is pretty huge.
So apart from that, there's not that much risk. Not taking too many of them, right? It's one or two gels can help. It doesn't mean that it's proportional. Oh, let's get 10 of them. I should have 10 times the help. Not quite.
Nicole Miracle came through the Irish tables about 25 seconds behind Elisa. So from going neck and neck, 25 seconds is a pretty big gap there, I would say, considering they spent half the race neck and neck. Elisa has come into this incredibly strong and confident. She's really been pushing Nicole. She's taken the lead now. She may just keep increasing this gap. It's interesting to say about nothing new on race day. I don't, I'm not an athlete who races, but I'm certainly someone who takes part in events. And I ran a road marathon last year. And, as I'm sure you're aware, there's a lot of very aggressive road running shoes out there on the market, which I stayed away from because I never got my feet trained to using them. And they're incredibly tiring. But I did see towards like the final third of the race, a lot of athletes, and we're talking kind of the regular marathon runners like me, not people who are coming anywhere near the top, taking their shoes off and walking barefoot. They'd gone for the very, very aggressive shoe, hoping to take the gains from that, and then finding actually it's a lot of work to wear something like that. There are so many. I say this purely as a point to kind of highlight what you're saying. There are so many considerations to take in with what you wear. You see athletes all wearing different shoes. There's always a conversation, what's the best shoe for OCR? Who are you? What do you need from your shoe? What shape is your foot? How does your foot react to, how does your heel react to the back? How high your arch is? There are so many variables, it's hard to often say what's the best thing for each athlete.
Yeah, absolutely. We have so much choice now in the gear and in everything that there's no one best thing. It's really about trying to pinpoint what's good for you, ideally trying several stuff. And not look at what's best for the top runners may not necessarily be what's best for you. Some of the more aggressive shoes, carbon plated, for example, when running on concrete, sometimes they're going to be very unstable because you're supposed to be spending very little time on the ground with them, and that's why it's not useful. It really is counterproductive for somebody with a bit slower pace to go with this kind of shoes. Look at the steepness here. She's actually on all four in the sand.
So in the men's, we're seeing the men having come through Olympus. Thibaut Journe and Eugenio Godinez in second and third place, coming through at exactly the same time.
And with a 40-second lead over fourth place and fifth place. That's interesting. They're pulling away.
Yeah. So the battle with all obstacles. Talking about second and third, if they pass all obstacles, we could be seeing, as we've seen quite a lot in the last few years, and I always love it, an almost photo finish or a photo finish. But if one of them were to fail an obstacle, we could see, fourth or fifth, where they're currently sitting, and that's still plenty of time to change, moving up into third. David Labrosse moving into sixth. He's sped up. He's moved up the rankings since the beginning. There's quite a lot of changes happening in the men's field. As we mentioned several times, this is a really deep competitive field. And if you're looking at the race results as well, you can see the variety of nationalities in the top 10. France, Mexico, Slovakia, the Czech Republic, USA, Italy, Poland. That's exactly what you want to see in a World Championship race.
Absolutely, and especially seeing them so tight between second and 10th place, where it's less than 3 minutes. And that's what we said before. 2-3 minutes is about the time it takes to complete the burpee penalty, for example, at the spear throw. So anybody who's still within 2 or 3 minutes, we know they're still in the game for sure.
In the game.
Elle fait un demi-tour ici là? Repose-toi, faut faire du jus.
Yeah, up to 7th place, we're seeing just a difference of less than a minute between 2nd and 7th by Olympus. That is such a tight field, which we're not necessarily seeing reflected on the camera because Gregory Basilico is so far ahead of everyone else. He has a 4.5 minute lead currently.
Look at this bucket carry. That's just... You can be sure that the bucket is probably full of sand because they have a bunch of it around.
Is there?
Guys.
Why not?
Guys, we're running out of sand. Yeah, it's about 28 degrees already in the morning there. "28 degrees Celsius over there, and it's just morning,
Already.
right? It's about not even 9 a.m. It is hot.
Which explains why they're doing night races as well, which is super fun. You know what I also want to say? So I took part in Europe's Toughest Mudder this year. And one of the aspects I didn't think I was going to enjoy, one of the things I thought I was specifically going to not enjoy was running without music, because I've not done that in a very long time. I've not been doing OCR as much, but I loved that. But another thing I really, really, really enjoyed was running at night in the outside, in a remote area by myself, which as a woman is not something I ever do. And I know a lot of women don't do either because it's, you know, it's not safe. And so to have night races, especially women only night races, I think is a really, really, really fantastic thing to allow women to take part in a sport that they're often limited by.
Yeah.
So I think that's, I would have loved to have done that. I would have loved to take part. Obviously the heat plays a big part, but having the opportunity to run at night is just incredible.
Tu me dis quand tu reviens du lac et moi j'attends. Je comprends pas où t'es.
I mean, Gregory is still running with the same kind of speed that we've seen him throughout.
Yeah, the pace is unbelievable.
We're seeing some recaps of the women here. Elisa and Nicole have been running neck and neck Now, quite a sizable difference between Elisa and Nicole at the water station. 1.5 minutes. I've mentioned a few times how strong Nicole is this year. This just shows how strong Elisa has come into this race.
Yeah.
To have taken that lead so quickly. Susanna Kokomova, who really pushed Nicole at the Croatia Sprint World Championship in 3rd place at the water station. But then we're seeing a gap, the next 3 athletes are at the Irish table, and then after that we're seeing athletes at Armour. So the women's field is quite spread out. And Esther, who I've mentioned a few times, someone who's a very, very strong athlete, but we have said we're kind of unaware of where she is currently in terms of fitness or strength, has dropped down to 9th. And Ulrika, another female that we had our eyes on, in 17th, which is very unexpected. So I'll be interested to see what's happened with her during this race after the event.
This pace is incredible. Almost 2 hours in, and it's just I'm blown away. And I'm used to seeing him running fast, but yeah, it's mind blowing.
We just saw him at bucket carry, which is obstacle 18, mile 10. Now, again, I'm going to mention, obstacle 18 of 32. But after the bucket carry 18, we had the Z wall. We get our obstacles kind of coming one after the next from 23 onwards. They are thick and fast. So although it sounds like we're in obstacle 18 of 32, we're getting pretty close to the end, and he is moving incredibly quickly, as is Elisa.
Allez, bon. Attends, j'ai quoi? Ça part? Ah ouais, je suis descendu à 800 KO là. Ok.
And we just saw the mark, 17 kilometers.
17 of 21. That must be a good feeling. I'm sure the athletes have been out and they've walked the course and they kind of know what to expect, but it still must be a good feeling. And very often people will get updates of, you're in this place. Some athletes don't want to know. Some athletes don't want to know how far behind people are. Sometimes they ask, but he must be aware there's no one in sight.
Yeah, I was about to say, on such an open field like this, almost everybody's in sight. Who's in front of you or just behind. But Gregory is such a big lead that no, he could stop, look back, and he wouldn't see anybody for miles. But that's good for Elisa, for example.
She's currently in 1st place, and she will not see anyone behind her. 4 minutes and 20 seconds between her and 3rd place. 1.5 minutes between her and 2nd. She has stormed ahead.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what has happened, because we were seeing her pushing Nicole, it looked like, she was right on her shoulder. And you mentioned earlier on, potentially just holding pace, ready to take off. But it feels early to have taken off for her, to be pushing that much harder, if that was the game. Or did she just see an opportunity and take it? Who knows?
Or, and I think that's something that we can see the other way around, is that when they were running together, it was not Elisa who was pushing, it was Nicole. Could have been, what I mentioned from the start, that it could be a strategy to go out at the front from the beginning and try to hang in there. And that's what she tried to do, maybe. but Elisa would have none of it. She'd be like, "Oh, I can follow that pace," and then that put some extra pressure on Nicole to just go, "All right, I'm gonna try to drop her," and she spent maybe 20 minutes trying to drop her, but Elisa was having a good time, and and that's where
Potentially,
Nicole
yeah.
actually couldn't keep up, and she's losing now a few seconds, minutes even. So I'm not sure necessarily
It's
that
always
Elisa.
an interesting. So it's always an interesting conversation, sorry, between when you talk to athletes about strategy. And, you know, one athlete never knows what another is doing. I've certainly seen races, John Alban in mind, where he's been running almost neck and neck with another athlete for a long amount of the race, and then has just gone, okay, I've had enough of this now, bye, and has opened up his legs and taken the win. And, you know, the athlete behind him had no idea that there was still so much in the tank. And it's a good technique to go, I'll run with this athlete and push them a little bit faster than maybe they want to go, to tire them out, and then I'm going to open up. And then you have other athletes. Chris Rogowski is always a great example of an athlete who runs her own race. We've certainly seen her at other events where she's not been pushed by the athletes in the front, and she might be sitting in 4th place, and then she takes the win anyway because she's run it at her pace rather than being influenced from those around her. I suppose it's a race-on-race basis. It's incredibly difficult.
At the end of the day, I mean, yeah, that's some impressive overtaking.
Overtaking? Is that David Labrosse overtaking?
Yeah.
Thibaut Jean?
Yeah.
Wow. David Labrosse moving into 2nd place.
And that was really strong
You're seeing
overtaking.
a full French top 3.
Absolutely. And you were just talking about the different strategies. David started a bit behind, it seemed, and
oh, here is the double sandbag carry that the athletes have been dreading.
Okay, looks
heavy
like
sandbags, 2 of them, which then get put into a plate for the plate drag.
That's what's interesting. It looks like he's, oh wow.
Well, he's a strong man. He's not short of strength.
Yeah, but that's not, look, oh, that's interesting. The technique, you can't hold that with just your hand. Your grip is getting shot, and especially with the important grip obstacles coming after, you have to take the time to put both of them on your shoulders if you can. And
that has changed the top. That has changed the top 5. So we're now seeing Gregory Basilico, David Labrosse, Thibaut Jean, Richard Hynek, and Eugenio Godinez, who had been sitting in 2nd, is now in 5th. David Labrosse is also another athlete who's come back from injury. A good few years ago, he had a motorcycle accident, and it took him quite a lot of work to come back. And I always love these comeback stories from athletes where they take their time to regain strength and don't rush their return. And I think it's a great example for, you know, the regular people on how to do this, and that it's okay to be human. You know, it's okay to rebuild strength. It doesn't come back automatically. You see that with the women a lot as well. I love watching the postpartum journeys of female athletes and seeing how they tackle that, because so often the pressure is to return immediately. Karen Carlson, a fantastic example of, she actually pushed her return, and then we spoke again a year later and she said, no, I pushed it too much. I needed to take more time. And I think it's great in all aspects of physical recovery, whether it's from pregnancy or injury or accident, to take the time to rebuild strength. So when I see an athlete return stronger than ever, I'm really happy. So I'm very happy to see David Labrosse in 2nd place, having come back, currently sitting in 2nd place, having come back from injury and competing again.
I'm fascinated by this double sandbag carry. Look at Gregory. He's trying, he's carrying the bottom one, he has the top one on his shoulder, but if it's falling, then he has to take a break. We've seen him take a couple of breaks already. Now he's making a good progress here. But that's what we discussed before. This is typically the kind of obstacles that not only cost a lot of time and energy, but where you could see some moves on the leaderboard. We'll see how it goes for David, Thibaut, and Richard, for example. Any
Yeah, we
junior
absolutely
who's
have
good.
seen changes she's on the leaderboard because of that.
Putain, mais quoi, il arrive.
He's doing fine here, but he's going to get to the plate drag in a minute.
Well, he's gone from second place to being left behind.
Who did?
Eugenio?
Oh, the sandbag. No, the sandbag carry was it was Gregory. He's the only one getting to the double sandbag.
Ah, forgive me.
They all finished the bucket carry. There's a lot of carries.
There's a
We're
lot of
getting mixed
carries.
up. The double sandbag. Gregory is the only one there. He's been struggling, rightfully so, with the weight and then the
yes.
handle of the sandbag. But yeah,
For some
we
reason
can
in my
see
head I
it's
was
gonna
seeing
be-
Eugenio, but there we go.
Putain, j'arrive pas là.
Look at this. Look at
Again,
steep
hands and
distance,
knees.
and every step is it's one step forward and two steps back almost.
Again, I cannot. Of course, I cannot emphasize the difficulty of moving through this kind of sand. It's almost like you say, one step forward and a few steps back. It's not a linear progression when you're moving through sand like that. We mentioned the double sandbag carry a few times. It was a feature of the preview video that was put online, and also a couple of the athletes mentioned in their pre-race interviews. I think this double sandbag carry has been a bit of a feature, and a worry. And we can see here, we've seen how strong Gregory has been, and he has really struggled. I will be interested to see what happens for the women, and I'm hoping that the weights will be lighter for the women while still having a double carry, because they're also a different. They're not the usual Spartan pancakes. They don't have handles. We're looking at sacks of sand here, basically, with very little opportunity to get grip on them.
Yeah, and the weight is something, but the fact that you have two of them is also quite significant. So having for example, if the women were to carry less weight but having only one, that would be a totally different game. So you need to have two sandbags.
Yeah, exactly.
Each of them lighter, sure, but you need to have two.
Yes, 100% agree. The challenge needs to be the same but proportional, basically.
Exactly.
Ok. Là, justement, on avait un point qu'on avait repéré.
So that was Gregory's now been marked as going through the plate drag. Eyes on to see when the next athletes come through, but he currently has, we know he has a very strong lead, and that could increase on this sandbag carry. You can see him shaking his arms out, getting ready for the next section of the race, which is, we are looking at Herc hoist, which is another arm burner, and another Atlas carry to burn the arms out even further. So this, we could be seeing a lot of changes in the final part of the race, where we then have, monkey bars, multi-rig. If athletes' arms get burnt out too much, who knows what could happen there. Top three women have gone through. Olympus, Elisa Petrova still in first. Nicole Miracle, 1 minute and 40 seconds behind Elisa. And Susanna Kokomova coming in about just under 3 minutes behind Nicole. So the women are really spreading out.
Ça, par contre, ça va cutter, je pense. Ça va couper, là. On revient à un endroit qui capte pas bien.
It's interesting to see if Nicole took the water there. She almost looked like, yes, she's always very good at hydrating and fueling. But she also looks like she's in a big rush, wanting to close that gap. This is going to be a great event for her, you know, being pushed in this way after having such a strong season. Elisa has pretty much left her in the dust currently, and she's not really experienced that this year. So, you know with these athletes, they're here to win, but they love the competition as well. They don't want an easy win.
Débranche la GoPro. Débranche la GoPro et branche la poignée sur la GoPro. Ou alors tu branches le téléphone avec la batterie de la GoPro. C'est la batterie Volta là.
We usually see Gregory, as I mentioned, wearing 2 black armbands. Today's wearing 1 white. Is there any of you any insider knowledge on that choice? What would be, in your experience and opinion, what would be behind that?
Well, there's 2 things. I mean, the color for sure. It's about the heat. The fact that it's white versus black. It's getting really the heat. If you look at John Alban when he's running in the sand like this, it's just going to be fully covered in white. Long sleeves, long pants, usually everything white, really to try to absorb as little heat as possible. You're often better off fully covered in white rather than in short sleeves and having your skin taking in all the sun. So that's usually the reason, black versus white. Now, if there's only one compared to having 2 of them, there's nothing really too specific. Maybe there's if it's usually compression sleeves, maybe there's something following, could be an injury or some kind of tension on a given arm. That could be helpful. Sometimes it's a matter of feeling, and there's a bit of style as well. Sometimes people are going to have here, if you're right-handed, maybe he's using the right hand a little bit more. It could be, again, coming back from an injury or a little bit of a pain somewhere. So it's based on each person. It really can depend. We'd have to ask him directly.
Update on the men coming through plate drag. Top 5 men are through plate drag. David Labrosse dropping from 7th, currently having not gone through, dropping from 2nd, currently not gone through the plate drag yet. In first place, Gregory Basilico. Second place, quite a few minutes behind him, is Thibaut Jean. Richard Hynek in third, Jean Vladar in fourth, Peter Seniga in fifth. David Labrosse took a bit of a head start, run ahead and was challenging Thibaut and moved into second for a while. This double sandbag and plate drag is really going to be very, very testing for a lot of athletes, and we should see quite a lot of changes going on with not a lot of race afterwards to change things up, although obstacle heavy, so who knows. On Olympus, we've got the top 5 women have gone through Olympus. Elisa Petrova in first place. 2.5 minutes behind her is Nicole Miracle, and then another 3 minutes behind her, Susanna Kokumova. Sabrina Daolio in fourth, and Jolanta Papior in fifth. Sandy Menchie Abahan in sixth place there for the women. A few names that we expected not currently placing in that top 5, but, as you mentioned, Sandy did very well last year on the Beast World Championship, and Sabrina's name has been popping up a fair amount recently. But the top 3 are certainly no surprise, and I'll be very excited to see the challenge that happens between those 3 as the obstacles get very heavy and what could change with the double sandbag.
It's too bad we didn't have a bit more view on that. Oh, here we go. A couple of images of that double sandbag, but that was Gregory as well.
Yeah, I would like to
Is there
see
only
that a
him
bit
there?
more and see how people are.
If indeed David had a problem, David Labrosse had a problem on the. I mean, if he really dropped to 7th or 8th place, it means he did struggle a lot with that double sandbag, or maybe he is still struggling. It's a bit surprising. Again, you could see a few seconds being saved or lost, but it's rare to see somebody lose potentially 2 or 3 minutes on that double sandbag. So it might be a timing issue, maybe it was the timing match. So that's something to keep in mind. It's
That is a fair point.
surprising.
Yes, no, that is a very fair point.
But it could very well be as well. Again, that's such a tough obstacle. If you can't manage to put both bags on your shoulders and you have to carry them by hand, you can actually be struggling and barely being able to move. But again, David Labrosse has a lot of experience. So now we see Thibaut coming there. This is not David, so
No.
it's the last barbed wire crawl for Gregory.
Barbed wire crawl number 3. Obstacle 23 of 32. And we start, a small run now to the Atlas carry, and then it's kind of obstacle after obstacle after obstacle.
Here's the Atlas carry indeed.
I think, it's always an interesting thing. Often we do see the spear throw towards the end of the race. As we mentioned in Croatia, had the spear throw been at the end of the race, potentially Nicole would not have taken first place because she would not have had time to catch up. But what you don't see, you see the start often very similar, through walls, over, under, etc. And then the obstacles get fast and heavy, and you often see a spear throw at the end. But in between that, it's anyone's game. These are not standardized courses. Things change. And I always find it a very interesting combination of how the race is designed. And here we can see today, a lot of forearm heavy grip testing obstacles happening before the final gauntlet. And that is, that's particularly mean, isn't it? We can say each athlete has their specialised distance, or they run better in certain temperatures or locations, but with races not being standard, you just never know. You don't know what's going to happen.
Absolutely, and that's what we like, right? When it's always the same thing, that's part of it, is facing the unknown. It's the ability to have people from different backgrounds perform and compete against each other with their own strength and their weaknesses, and the ability to adapt your strength and weaknesses to the course and to the competition is a big part of it. So I personally, I wouldn't like to see Spartan get too standard and have all the races follow the same exact format. I think we'd be losing some of the appeal and the challenge.
Well, in the past, Spartan didn't used to release course maps ahead of time. It wasn't that you would get to see the course map the week before the event. You would just not know what was coming. And that was part of the challenge. That was designed to be part of the challenge, that you don't know what is coming. Oh, this is a change on the Z walls. Ending with a little monkey, a sideways monkey. That's new. Okay, so David Labrosse has been marked as going through the plate drag in 8th place.
Wow.
9 minutes behind Gregory Basilico. 7 minutes behind Thibaut Jouan. Well, I'm still very happy to have seen him in second for a few minutes. Oh, some water. How good would that be feeling?
That
You
must
know what?
be
I
like
made a
the
bold claim.
finish line.
I made a bold claim that the grip obstacles weren't going to be impacted by any water today, and I spoke too soon. There is water on the course, and we see there Gregory drying his hands off in the sand, which I don't know how fine the sand is. It might be a good opportunity actually to get his hands clean and dry. But I always feel like it's so hot, they'll probably dry off pretty quickly without the help of sand.
Again, that's how you see how professional he is and how he's used to racing and competing at the highest level. He has enough of a lead to not care that much about this, but he's not going to leave anything to chance, right? You can't tackle the obstacles that are coming with wet hands, so he's going to do everything to be ready.
And I think
for
we were
anything
seeing
that
there
comes his
Richard
way.
Hynek in second place.
I think so, yeah. He's the one battling with Thibaut right now. That's getting exciting. And yeah, they've caught up a little bit on Gregory on that double sandbag, but I don't think it will be enough to catch him. Look at this. When there's only one sandbag, it's a breeze.
I mean, his legs are working like suspension there. It's from the hips above, he's barely moving. Despite the terrain being, it was quite rocky and up and down there and carrying a heavy weight.
That's going to be an exciting battle for second place between Thibaut and Richard.
It really is. Richard is an incredible athlete. He is so strong. You mentioned in Croatia that he was coming back from an injury, and you were surprised to have seen him placing as high as he did. It was a bit of a battle. He tripped over on the A-frame coming through, and he was really strong. But he's been on the scene a long time, and he's an incredible athlete. It's almost like we've moved through the top males and had a bit of a feature from all of them. We started off with this race saying that the male field is so deep and there's a long run of names, and we've seen a lot of them kind of switching places, which just shows what a great competition this is for them.
Absolutely. Okay, Greg dropped the sandbag already. We can see he's getting closer to the village area and the final gauntlet of obstacles.
Nicole Miracle and Elisa Petrova both through the bucket carry. Elisa has almost a 5-minute lead on Nicole now.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And you could see when Nicole finished the last obstacle that she was on, she took a minute to drink, and you could see in the overall attitude that she knew, unless there was a mistake from Elisa, she likely couldn't catch her. So again, she's not giving up by any means, right?
Quite a few obstacles back where Elisa had taken the lead, and Nicole took a walk coming off the obstacle before heading up that small hill, and that was quite a long time ago. And there was a bit of an indication there that perhaps she knows she's not going to be.
And again,
we saw the interview with.
Oh, here it is.
Sorry, we were saying we saw the interview with Elisa coming in. Elisa's very confident. She's coming in strong, and she's well trained. She's ready for this race. She performed well last weekend. She knows she's got it in her, and she has beaten Nicole before. Gregory taking taking a few seconds there to choose which lane he goes into. Now this multi-rig, not an easy obstacle. Especially.
Yeah, you don't want to.
Oh wow. My gosh.
You don't want to make mistakes, but that happens.
You don't want to make mistakes here, but especially after those carries that we've had, a lot of carries one after the next, very intense on the forearms. especially,
absolutely.
that is going to impact the grip here for this. And you could see Gregory took a few seconds to choose his lane. He changed lanes, and then he was taking his time to go through that obstacle.
He dried his hands again, or tried to dry his hands. Maybe they were still a bit too wet. And yeah, anything can happen still.
Oh my gosh, Zuzana is less than a minute behind Nicole.
Oh, that's the risk when you're fighting for first place and then you're dropping a little bit too much energy. She might be thinking that she has enough of a lead on Susanna, but if it's not the case, and if she pushed a bit too much to try and stick to Elisa at the beginning, that might be hard to maintain the pace.
Susanna has recent experience of racing against Nicole, as we've mentioned a few times. You know, she was on her tail in Croatia. She overtook and led the race for a good section. She knows she has it in her. Again, we mentioned, you know, sometimes athletes know who's behind them, who's ahead. They know what the competition is, and sometimes they don't. But she might know that she's, you know, less than a minute, and it may be a push for her to see if she can take that second place.
And Greg is done with the penalty, which was pretty long. Look at that,
Yes.
obviously, it's a good.
Straight into spear throw, where we see the
All
Berkeys
right,
come
now
back.
he knows. He knows this is it. If that spear goes in, it's a win for him.
He's okay.
If it doesn't, he's still in a good place, but all right. Let's hold our breath. Got it. Nice. That was perfect.
It
What
was
a relief
textbook.
for him. Yeah.
I was feeling nervous for him.
Yeah, of course. And now you can see that with the adrenaline, now it's all good. Nothing can happen.
He's run an incredibly strong race. He deserves this win.
That is impressive.
Here's the raining, as we can hear Spartan Full in the background. Oh, I love this. The reigning trifecta world champion from Sparta, which was only at the beginning of November. You know, we're seeing a bit of a change in the Spartan championship calendar with the races moving, you know, kind of one each month, which gives a bit more time for athletes to plan their season, to not be racing weekend after weekend. But he has just come back from a 3-day race weekend. Richard has really picked up the pace here towards the end. We're not seeing him that far behind Gregory.
Yeah, that was quite impressive, especially with that penalty for Gregory. Oh, look at that.
And not missing.
Crushed.
Not missing. Rich is a great athlete, and I say this a lot, but what I love about the sport is that we don't yet have a visual of an ideal OCR athlete. And he moves so fast and he moves so well through obstacles despite having a lot more height than a lot of athletes. And he nailed the spear throw. He doesn't look like he should be moving as fast as he is, and yet he's still so elegant and so strong and so fast. What a great race from Richard Hynek.
You look at Thibaut and Gregory, who have kind of similar body types, and in between them in the ranking, you see a guy like Richard, who has definitely a different body type, but he's crushing it. Second place, well deserved.
Second place.
That's amazing.
Not taking a penalty on the multi-rig where Gregory did.
He got into second place after an hour. He got to second place after an hour and 50 or 55 minutes. He was always a bit behind, top 5 or something like this, and then he just,
Well, maybe this is where, I'm sure we'll find this out, maybe this is where the double sandbag played to his strengths, being larger, having more strength. He could have overtaken there, and he has the agility on the obstacles to be able to then not be taking penalties. He finished a minute and a half behind behind Gregory Basilico. Gregory Basilico had like a 4-minute lead at times.
I think even when up to 5 at some point, it was really impressive. But yeah, no, you're right.
Which goes to show
he
the
had the
difference
penalty.
of penalties. Yeah.
He had the penalty on the rig, Gregory, and that cost him. Oh, that was nice.
It was really nice.
Yeah, he knows. Third place.
Thibaut
Really
just
happy
taking a
with that.
look behind him.
Yeah.
Jean
You can see the
Godard was
fist
only
bump.
30 seconds behind Thibaut at the A-frame. So if he had failed either one of those obstacles and Jan hadn't failed them, he would have lost his third place. And I love to see the sportsmanship between athletes as well. You know, so many of them are really close friends. That was really fun from Gregory wading in. Thibaut Jean, our third place male champion at the
What,
Beast
5-10
World
minutes ago?
Championships.
5-10 minutes ago, those two were battling it out super hard, and once it's done, right? And having a big hug and proud of themselves, proud of each other. That's the spirit.
C'est quoi? On va débrancher celui-là. Il y a peut-être un problème avec.
The last we saw of the women on the timing mats was the bucket carry, and they still have the double sandbag. Suzanne is very strong.
De quoi? Qu'est-ce qui monte pas?
She absolutely is.
It'll be interesting to see whether that changes.
Qu'est-ce qui monte pas, Jérém?
The athletes now in a point where they can't be they don't have the luxury of going across the line, posing or showing off. They are wanting those spaces because they don't have the head start now.
See, as we discussed before, we see, so first and second place were a little bit, pulled away a little, and then we have third place, fourth place, fifth place within a minute, and still pretty tight, and then we're getting the rest of the pack coming in now. All of them nailing their throws.
C'est pas le câble. Ce serait.
What a race. It was crazy to see almost some suspense at the end. I mean, like you said, if Gregory had missed his spear throw, 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, this is what it takes to do dirty burpees. That would have been a sprint finish with Richard. Wow, that would have been incredible.
And that's what we love about this sport.
Absolutely.
Did we expect to see Gregory Basilico taking a penalty on the multi-rig? We didn't, but he's pushed incredibly hard during this race. Incredibly hard, and we saw, we didn't see all the athletes go through the double sandbag carry, so we can't comment on them, but we saw how tough that carry was for him. And that, you can feel the burn in his forearms watching it.
And that's where, when you get to that point, it's really about endurance and enduring mentally and physically what's coming. And that's where the brain plays a huge role in that ability to endure. What I mean by this is if Greg knew that he had only a 1 minute lead over Richard, I feel like he might have actually managed the multi-rig.
You think?
But when you know you have, it's not certain.
Way that it could pile on the pressure.
Yeah, but
it
usually
makes
it's
more
more
likely to.
It's not like their pressure could make you make a mistake, but those guys don't make a
Look at the
mistake
difference
from.
here with Eugenio. He was, we saw him start the race in first place. We know he's a fantastic athlete. He looked very tired approaching this multi-rig. He's really thinking about it, but he's going through strong. Now, he was the first place finisher at OCRWC on the 15K. The interesting part about that race is it is a mandatory completion, and that race was tough. It is really, really challenging up body obstacles that aren't necessarily seen elsewhere. So we know that he has the skills to get through these obstacles. But he really does look like he's Oh, an injury. He looks like cramp, perhaps injury. He looks like he's suffering, but he moved through the multi-rig with ease. So something happened to him out there, because he started off the race strong, and we know he is a very strong and competent athlete. But then again, looking at the top 10, they all are. They all are.
He's still within top 10. It's still within 10 minutes of the winning time, so he's still having a great race. Maybe not the best he might have liked, but...
He looks like he's in pain.
Come on. Oh no.
Potentially feeling like he really does not want to be doing those 30 burpees. I don't know what's going on with his right leg. But
he's the first one. He's the first one doing them today.
I love the spear throw as a spectator because it's an obstacle that it's so different from the other obstacles. It's not a strength obstacle. It's hard to train for. A lot of it comes down to adrenaline. Being steady, taking your time, hitting it right, which is that's really hard in a race like this. And you could see him approaching the multi-rig. He looked really in pain and yet moved through it beautifully. And I watching him do the spear throw, and I was thinking, you know, if that was me, I'd be thinking, I don't want to do these 30 burpees with the discomfort looks in, although he's doing really well. Update on women. Elisa Petrova has gone through plate drag. And we also have the top 6 women are through bucket carry.
So plate drag, as we know, means that she's done with the double sandbag carry, which is a really tricky one.
Yeah, I think they're actually giving the athletes a bit of a rest with that plate drag, going in the sandbag carry. You get to put it down
Almost,
for a while.
It's good to see some burpees. I don't think he enjoys being the one having to do them, but alright, it's done. 30 is a lot on top of it, right? Doing 10 burpees is fine.
30 is a lot.
And look at that. He's getting passed by... Who is it behind him? Lose one spot.
Christian Kraus?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow.
And see, that's what we said. He had almost a 3-minute lead on him before the spear throw, and that's what the burpees are costing him. About 3 minutes.
Yeah.
2.5.
Wow.
Crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, slowly.
Perfect. Okay, back with the women. Elisa Petrova has, you know, from what we've seen, she last had a really strong lead. But from what we've just seen as well, that can change very easily. With this final gauntlet of obstacles, there are a couple of opportunities taking a penalty. The penalty for the multi-rig is not short. The penalty for the spear throw is 30 burpees, which Joe Desena is very, very happy about. But I'm not sure the athletes is pleased.
Susanna in second place after the plate drag. She just passed Nicole on that double sandbag. Yeah, that's why on that double sandbag she... Now, can Nicole actually...
Susanna is very strong.
Hang in there and try to catch up on the more technical obstacles after. This was really a strength-heavy obstacle, that double sandbag and the plate drag.
I would love to see some of the women on the double sandbag to see how they are. Look at Elisa, she's doing the same as Gregory did with the arms, you know, that kind of... We all know. Any of us that have done these races, we all know that feeling in the forearm of where it feels heavy. You know, it almost feels like they're filled with cement, and you've just got to get the blood flowing to get it back in there so that you can go for these grip obstacles. But yeah, I was just saying, I'd love to see the women on the double sandbag carry. The men that we saw, really struggled with it. We mentioned Susanna's physically very strong athlete, as David Buck-Ross crossing the finish line. He briefly was in second place, and again, this double sandbag, it appears, dropped down quite dramatically. And where you see these smaller athletes, that's where they struggle. And that's what I love about this sport. There is no ideal athlete for the sport because it is so varied. You have to be able to do a lot of different things.
It's funny how we discussed, where there could be a potential big change in the ranking, and early on we talked about that double sandbag carry was a play drag, and it seems that's where everything happened for the podium on the men's side and on the women's side. Actually, I wish we had a drone shot, like a constant drone shot on the whole double sandbag, because that must have been really exciting to see people kind of passing each other. That was
Whoa,
a big,
did you see that spear throw? That was
did not mess
beautiful. Nicole through the plate drag, yeah. 2 minutes.
Almost 2 minutes, yeah. That's going to be hard to...
8 minutes behind Elisa. Elisa took her opportunity to move into the lead. I think that must have been very well planned because she took it at a time where she'd obviously pushed Nicole.
I think, again,
and then
when we
had
see
enough
that...
time to build a strong lead.
When we see that Nicole is actually now getting passed by Susanna, I don't think necessarily that Elisa increased the pace. I think it's really Nicole who really couldn't keep up. Maybe she started out a bit too fast. I think Susanna had a similar race as Elisa, and Nicole is the one who maybe started a bit too fast. We know how strong she is on shorter courses. Now that 2-hour mark might have been a bit tough for her.
I think what's interesting to comment on as well is, we don't have a ton of athletes from North America. We've got Brendan Neely, we've got Paul, Nicole Miracle. We've also got a couple of Mexican athletes, Eugenio Godinez being one of them. The travel to the east is incredibly difficult. To travel to the States from Europe, etc., to race is not hard because the time difference doesn't impact you. But traveling over to Europe to race, and especially over to Abu Dhabi, it's even further with a bigger time difference. That's going to be impacting athletes as well. And Nicole's done a lot of traveling this season. She's been back and forth. Could that be impacting our athletes from America, Canada, USA, Canada, Mexico?
I mean, when you're traveling eastwards, you have to travel back westwards at some point, right? So I think overall, usually they try to make sure that they arrive a few days in advance. If they can, of course, not always easy. Sometimes you see runners showing up the day before the race, and it's hard to acclimatize to the weather, to the...
Here's Susanna. We've not had
lag.
much of a... we've not had her on camera much. It's good to see her. You can see how strong she is.
Absolutely.
She's still moving incredibly well. And her strength coming into play with lots of the heavy obstacles here today.
But we know Nicole is less than 2 minutes behind, so I think the multi-rig and the spear throw are gonna come in as a really decisive.
So the last time we saw Nicole and Susanna racing was Croatia. Nicole lost her first place to Susanna at the spear throw, and Susanna lost her first place to Nicole at a multi-rig. And now we have these two. We have the two obstacles, one next to the other, right at the end. Yeah. Will that play on either of their minds? We have no other female athletes through the plate drag yet.
Yeah, I think we have our podium that's likely done. Now, second and third place might actually still switch back and forth. That's going to be the...
We have had a fair few men finish, so I'll give you the top 10 male finishers as a recap. First place, Gregory Basilico. Second place, Richard Hynek. And third place was Thibaut Jean. Fourth was Jean Vladar, and Peter Saniga came in fifth. Gregor's Schlechler in sixth, Christian Kraus in seventh, Eugenia Godinez in eighth, David Labrosse in ninth, and Hansueli Frey in 10th. And they were our top 10 male finishers. We saw so many changes happening in the men. You know, Eugenia Godinez did go out first, but was quite rapidly overtaken by Gregory, who held first the rest of the race. But after that, it was pretty much anyone's game. They were changing continuously. Sabrina Daolio from South Africa has gone through the plate drag. She's about 8 minutes, just under 5 minutes behind Nicole Maracle. We're seeing a lot more variation in times in the women.
Yeah.
Oh, we just about see Elisa there. Looks like she got through without a penalty.
You can see, same as Gregory before, trying to jump with her hands in the air to avoid having them all wet
Yeah,
before the last few obstacles.
it's a good
Smart
shout.
move.
Je marche du coup 10 minutes d'écart. T'attends 30 secondes comme tu veux, le niveau va monter. Dis-moi quand il monte.
Yeah, almost a 5-minute difference between Nicole and Sabrina makes it quite comfortable. But again, with the penalties, be it burpees or the penalty loop for the multi-rig and the spear throw, 5 minutes is not enough to say that it's over. So that third place is still at play for sure.
It ain't over till it's over. Second and third, between Susanna and Nicole, it ain't over till it's over either. In the same way that we saw Gregory running incredibly strong still at the end, we're seeing the same thing from Elisa here.
Oh yeah.
I think also the confidence to know that, she ran in the desert in February. She ran against a lot of the same female athletes, including Nicole, who came second. She took a whole extra lap on Nicole. And
Yeah, absolutely.
potentially that confidence of knowing that she has that strength in the desert and against these athletes is going to work very well for her.
100%. That's what we mentioned at the beginning about having, being a race for specialists. It's so specific physically and mentally. When you get there in the sand, even if it's not the exact same place, right, with Alula, it feels like home. It feels like, okay, I'm on my home turf, and that when you've won somewhere,
The heat, the dryness, the sand.
yeah. And there's really a difference between thinking you can and knowing you can, right? When you've won before in this kind of place, it's not like, oh yeah, I think I can do well. It's like, I know I can do well because I've done well in the past, not that long ago.
Let's take a look at the male leaderboard now. So here we go, the top 10 men finishing with a difference of 12 minutes between first and 10th place. In first place is Gregory Basilico, followed by Richard Hynek. Thibaut Jean in third place. In fourth was Jan Vladar. Peter Saniga took fifth with Gregors Schlexler in sixth. Christian Kraus just overtaking Eugenio Godinez right at the end with a sprint finish, taking seventh with Eugenio coming in eighth. David Labrosse in ninth and Hansueli Frey in 10th place. That is our top 10 men for the Spartan Beast World Championship hosted by Abu Dhabi Sports Council.
Yes. Oh, it's cool. No? Dennis. Why? Are you tired? Yeah. Not my day. Yes. Je suis sur le finish avec les femmes.
Here she comes to the last few. Obstacles with that A-frame here.
She's not been taking any penalties. And there we can see side the alley.
Well done.
Here we go. Back on Elisa for her finish as the world champion of the Spartan Beast here in Abu Dhabi.
Wow.
Getting through the multi-rig beautifully. Heading for the spin throw. He has a really strong lead here.
She's using the same spear as the male leader, Gregory Basilico, earlier. I don't know if there's something with that penultimate one, but...
We did see
Oh, nice.
Nice. What a beautiful throw.
holding my breath there. We did see Sergey having gone back and was taking videos, potentially also telling her this much of a lead, this is your safety. Very often when it gets to this point, athletes, especially those who are married, will support each other, help each other out, give each other tips of what's going on. Here we go, Susanna, second place. Beautiful race by Elisa Petrova taking first place here at the Spartan Beast World Championship. I mean, still moving with such speed through that finish. She came in confident, and rightly so. She said she was ready for this race, and absolutely.
She was in full focus for the whole race. Feels like it's the first time that we are seeing a smile, which makes sense. They were in pain for most of the race, so can't blame them.
The last we saw on the timing was about 2 minutes behind Susanna. And she was leading the race, kind of neck and neck with Elisa for the first part, but very often just those few steps ahead. And she's now in third place.
We're gonna have a new timing between those two when we get to the A-frame, and then there will be the multi-rig and the spear throw. That could be decisive. And there's that sandbag carry before, but it's a classic, fairly rolling sandbag carry. There shouldn't be that much difference. in this obstacle. But the trend was obviously in favor of Susanna, who passed Nicole. So she had about a 1 minute 30 lead. It might actually have gone up to 2 or almost 3 minutes. So we'll see if Nicole has a chance. By Nicole, I mean, it's easy for her. She has to nail all the obstacles. If Susanna is missing one, she's gonna be challenged.
Let's see what this is.
Time, but it felt like it's long, especially because I rested like maybe 4 or 5 times. Each time 10 seconds, it's already 50 seconds resting.
So congrats again. Did you prepare this? Was it the goal of the year? Was this race the target of the year?
Of course, I was preparing, but before the rest, you never know how your body will react. I tried to train, get some volume to be in a good shape, but everybody was saying like you are ready, but in my mind, I didn't believe that I am ready. Only like after half of the race, maybe I start to say myself just to convince to keep pushing. Like, okay, you are ready. Okay, you are ready. I was telling myself in my mind. Just to...
What about the most dangerous adversary? Who do you think could beat you before the race, and you are happy to be in front today?
Of course, I thought that Nicole can be first, and she was really good on running. We were together battling, and I a bit left behind her after a hanger because my leg was so shaking like this. When you hold one arm, it goes like this, you know, like like this. So much shaking, so I left behind her. Then I had to catch her. It was not easy because it's hard to race on sand. And I already started to feel cramps in my right leg, and it was more than 9 kilometers till finish. I was so afraid that these cramps will prevent me from good running.
Yeah, but you managed to stay in front and you win the race, so congrats again.
I tried to eat gels, hoping that it will maybe help somehow electrolytes from
Did
cramps.
you have a lot of food on you? Did you take water before the race?
I try to take water at every station where I see
stop
water.
at every station?
Yeah, at every station. Also pour in myself, drink, and I took about 5 gels, energy gels. Yeah,
Okay.
just to trying to keep my energy.
Yeah, no problem with the sand in your mouth or something like this?
Of course, it was some sand in my mouth, nose, and eyes. Especially there was a descending under net on sand. You have to open the net and go under, and you are descending from the dune.
I see.
And all sand is going like this in the eyes. So it was crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy race. You didn't wear any
Here we go. Susanna coming through the multi-rig. Great day for racing. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, that was great to roll a race with her, basically, with everything that we've seen, and then having a bit more of her own take on it.
She's taking her time there to make sure she's got a good grip.
Oh, and there's Nicole just on the side.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow.
Nicole is really caught up. 20 seconds behind her on the A-frame. So now it all comes down to the spear throw. Oh my gosh.
This is Spartan 101.
Spear throw where Susanna overtook Nicole and Croatia. They're going for the same one. Where will Nicole go? Oh my gosh.
Oh, she tried to go too fast. She tried to go too fast.
She rushed.
Didn't take a second. All right, Nicole. Now Nicole has to
Nicole
take a
has
breath.
time. She has the time, and it's worth it. But for Susanna, you know, she still needs to speed through those burpees, because if Nicole gets the burpees, she needs to be moving fast. What's happening with Nicole?
She got it. Oh, wow.
She stuck it.
That is amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
the race can be won and lost on the spear throw, especially when burpees come into play.
Case in point. Do you see the quick
Case
look
in
from
point.
Susanna over Nicole? That was incredible. In the middle of your burpees and you're looking at the second place escape away from you. Wow, this is incredible.
And again, like I know I've mentioned Croatia so many times, but these two athletes swapped positions on the spear throw, but the other way around in Croatia. Nicole Miracle, second place female for the Beast World Championship Spartan race, hosted by the Abu Dhabi Sports Council here in Al Wahda. Wow.
This is incredible.
Hopefully we'll get an interview from Nicole on the finish line.
I hope so, yeah. Look at her smile. You can be sure she's not thinking about first place, missing first place. She was in third, she actually got back, so yeah, no regret here at all.
Yeah. What a victory there. It was really great to hear from Elisa about her race. We may pass over to Nicole in a minute for an interview, but we were saying Elisa went in really confident. She knew she had it in her. Was she potentially testing Nicole and pushing her as hard as she could, ready to take over? But hearing her take of it, that's not what it sounded like at all. She said, people said I was ready, but I wasn't sure if I was. And, I knew Nicole could have it in her to take it. And it wasn't really until this point that I felt that I was strong enough. But even then I started cramping this many kilometers from the end. You just never know what's going on in an athlete's head. She looked from the outside to be cool, calm, collected, and have it in the bag. And yet internally that wasn't what was happening. A great example of being able to push through and that mental strength that you talk about a lot.
Exactly. And that's a place that happens. Of course you're a bit pissed when that happens, but I think the mistake was she was in the head when she got to the spear throw. She didn't take a second to put it in the middle, and then you lose 3 minutes.
That's the thing. You can see it with grip obstacles. You can see it with obstacles like multi-rig, where athletes will take a second to gather themselves to make sure they've got the strength. But spear throw, as we've mentioned, that is more a mental game.
Un peu les bras, et du coup pour le multi, je suis arrivé vraiment limite dessus. Du coup je l'ai raté. J'ai essayé de me dépêcher. Je savais que j'avais encore un peu d'avance, mais j'étais pas très serein. Et le javelot, voilà, je me suis bien concentré parce qu'il fallait pas faire l'erreur de l'année dernière.
It was very difficult, muscular, a lot of heavy weight, so it was hard for the arms, like Alisa Petrova, very difficult for the muscles, but we managed to do all the obstacles until the last one at the spear throw. It took a lot of time, to do it right, and it was okay. But he missed the last obstacle, the multi-rig, because so much no more muscle, a lot of pain in the arms, so it was difficult to finish the last obstacle.
Yes, du coup super content, voilà, maintenant double champion du monde cette année, vice-champion du monde sur la sprint, champion d'Europe, vainqueur de la série suisse. Je pense que la saison est réussie et maintenant go les vacances.
He's very happy, but not just for this race, for all this season, because a lot of him, as you heard him said, he wins this World Championship, he wins the World Championship in Spartan, in Greece, the European Championship in Capri, so a lot of races, except maybe the second class in the very fast race on the 5K, but he's very happy with this season, maybe it's the best of your life.
Yes, si on m'avait dit avant la saison que j'allais faire tout ça, j'aurais pas cru. Donc non, je suis vraiment content et là il est temps de se reposer maintenant parce que je suis en route depuis janvier. On avait une course avec Thibaut Jean en Arabie Saoudite. Donc là je suis content que ça se termine la saison aussi.
Great to hear from Gregory Vasilko there, as the interviewer mentioned. He's is he in the best shape of his life? Last year he was second place here at the World Championship He was the European champion. He's the reigning trifecta world champion. He is collecting title after title and going from strength to strength.
Yeah, exactly. He was saying he's really happy with the season. It was much better than he expected even. And he said he's happy also to get on a break and to call it a year, because he's been out there on the road since January. And it's been a long season, so he's happy to get a few weeks off. But then he's gonna have to get back to it early on next year. So
Is Sabrina coming through from South Africa through the multi-rig for 4th place in the women, Sabrina Daoli.
at some point, when Susanna passed Nicole and then Sabrina was getting closer, it felt like Nicole was dropping back, and we started to wonder if Sabrina had a chance. And actually quite the opposite. Nicole came back from the dead and had a pretty awesome finish on the rig and the spear throw. Really impressive
We
to
can
see
only
how
assume
much
that
difference.
double sandbag really impacted a lot of athletes, including Nicole.
For sure.
Yeah, that was a talking point before the race. 2 beautiful examples of the spear throw there. And I think this is one of the things with practicing the spear throw. A lot of athletes will have this set up in their training or in their garden, but you really need that high pressure situation to be nailing it. You can nail it one after the next when you're cool, calm and collected. You kind of need to do it with a fire alarm going off and 10 children screaming at you.
Exactly. One way to simulate that, for example, is to go and say, hey, when you're in training, I need to nail 5 of them in a row, or 10 of them in a row, or I have to keep going. And then that makes the 4th one or 5th one really stressful. And if you want to add it, make it even spicier, you go for a session where you're going to do your 30 burpees for every spear throw that you miss. That's going to increase your heart rate as well and makes it a great training session. Mentally, physically, and
you've also got the mental aspect of the spear throw, and it's something that plays on. And again, I'll refer back to Ryan Atkins nailing the spear throw last year, turning around and giving it a double finger. Very, very unusual show from Ryan there, but just goes to show that even with an athlete like him, how impactful and emotive that obstacle is. Very happy to see Spartan Phil in Abu Dhabi.
Had a nice 3-week training camp in Greece for the Spartan Trifecta World Championship. I saw you there. It was fun for me, yeah.
Ouais, vas-y, on va peut-être juste faire l'interview de Nicole et après on va couper.
Just a short pace and really good format. We were racing all day distances in the last weekend. I love it every year, so it's really exciting to be there and be healthy.
And so obviously you said that like the last time you raced on sand.
Ouais, ben on va couper après la 3e, mais vu qu'on... Ouais, 4 femmes.
The sand was worse, for sure. It was a little more packed down in Saudi Arabia, a little more runnable. Here, it just taxes your quad like crazy. There's the dunes you have to run up, and that
C'était facile ou...
C'est
dans le dur à un moment, quand je te dis, vivement le...
Hearing snippets there from Nicole talking about the difference racing here and Alula, despite, we've mentioned a few times the desert environment, but talking about the difference in the sand quality, etc.
We should get a bit more color on a race with an interview of Nicole in a minute, but it's hard to get there. They're talking to everyone. Everybody want to have a bit of the champion, second place, third place.
Let's recap on the female finishers whilst we do. So in first place was Elisa Petrova, followed by Nicole Miracle, who overtook Zuzana Kokomova in the last minutes at the spear throw. So First place, Elisa Petrova, Nicole Miracle in second, Susanna Kokomova in third, Sabrina De Olio was in fourth. And those are our only female finishers so far. Look at these beautiful views. And one thing I always love about OCR is the opportunity for the, I call it OCR tourism, the travel that you get to do as part of doing races.
Made mine, was able to solidify second place, so really happy.
It was amazing for me just watching you guys, because I had the live tracking coming up and I was like, okay, so it looks very much like Susanna Kokomova is going to be our second place athlete. There goes Susanna, spear throw, and then she missed, and I just saw you come up to it and I was like, okay, so this is going to be absolutely make or break. And the second that you stuck it, I was like, that's it, that's going to do, that's going to be the pole claim in second. So
I did.
Amazing.
I let it get a little too close. I wanted to have, you know, I wanted to like catch her on the rig, and actually I thought that that she might fail the rig. It seemed that it might be a little bit more challenging.
It's a brutal rig. Those ropes in the middle are
the ropes can be hard, yeah, but I mean she just flew through it. Yeah.
But like I said, just a fantastically exciting finish for us to all watch. So
thank you.
Thank you so much for once again putting on an incredible show, and we can't wait to see you in 2025.
Thank you. It was exciting.
Awesome. Well done.
Thanks.
Hey! A lot of work, so
yeah.
I just want to ask you, maybe you can say a few words for everybody who watched you on the live.
Oh yeah.
We're still live now.
Oh, we're still live. Oh, sweet. I didn't know there was a live feed. Yeah, just finished the Beast Spartan World Championships, and you know, I think I very much underestimated the unique challenges that sand dunes present, and I think that, you know, my fueling strategy kind of didn't go to plan, and just I think the musculature, you know, nuances that you need for sand, the like quad endurance and maybe like some adductor strength was a little more, was maybe a little lacking in that. So I did have some cramping and kind of went to some dark places and races that you don't want to go. But I'm just like really grateful that I was able to get out of that and stick, you know, stay in the race and reel Zuzana back in.
Can you say that when you race in the desert, when you race in the sand, you're not racing against the other, but against yourself?
That's what it felt like, for sure. It was definitely like a big mental challenge. Not just, you know, keeping up your speed and keeping the like determination, but also everything kind of looks the same, and so it's kind of like it's hard to navigate a little bit. You have to be like a little bit more aware of where you're going, and the sand is really interesting because it changes from really soft to hard packed, and all of a sudden, you know, you get a little bit more footing and you're running fast, and then all of a sudden you're sinking again, and so it's just like this really you know, like stark contrast. It's like kind of like stop and go almost. You can't really get like a rhythm going.
The marking is good.
Yeah.
Sometimes, when we are tired and just trying to get at the sand, you don't see where you have to go. So you have to be very focused on what you're doing. Congrats again.
Thank you.
What's next?
Well, I'm going to stick around the UAE and race the Dubai World Obstacle Championships in like 4 or 5 days. There's a 2.5K, 5K, and then I will take a much needed break from the season. I might take like a month off of running and just rest and read and enjoy myself and get some other work done. And then I really haven't even planned out next year. I'm not really sure what next year is going to look like, but just first things first, take a nice long rest to let my body recover, because it's been a lot of racing.
Okay, so congrats again.
Yeah.
Hope to see you next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
I think, yeah, that and the physical battle. She talked about how hard it is technically to go, especially in that sand dunes, and then the mental side when you're getting past, and then you still need to stick to it, not get dropped by second place, and being able to come back in. That was really a testament of grit and obviously of skills.
We talked a lot about the location today. Obviously, this is an incredible and very unique location for an OCR, especially a championship race, and that played very heavily in Nicole's race today. She spoke about how the difficulty with the sand dunes meant she couldn't get up a rhythm with running. Both her and Elisa spoke about cramping much earlier than they would normally expect to happen in a race like this. And I think it's a really interesting aspect of these huge variety of races, championship races that Spartan puts on, that you can have such a different challenge racing across the world. And it's not just the obstacles that are the challenge, you know, from weather to terrain to the ground underfoot. Each race is very, very different.
Look at this place. Isn't that the definition of the middle of nowhere?
Yeah, it's beautiful. This is Al Wathba Resort in Abu Dhabi. This is the Spartan Beast World Championship hosted by Abu Dhabi Sports Council. Bringing the female leaderboard, we've had 6 finishers so far. We've actually just had the 7th come through. So Elisa Petrova in first place. A very strong win from her and an incredible race. Followed in second place by Nicole Miracle. Third, Susanna Kokomova. And in fourth place, Sabrina Daolio. In 5th place was Svetlana Filopovic, and 6th, Ilanta Papior. We have had Sandy Menchi Abahan finish in 7th as well, just coming through the finish line as we brought this leaderboard up. Gregory Basilico with his classic finisher pose. It has been an incredible race. Thank you so much, Martin, for joining me here today. Thank you to the Rabbits for putting this race on, and thank you to Spartan Race for hosting it, and Abu Dhabi Sports Council. And thank you to all the athletes and everyone watching. I can't wait for what 2025 is going to bring. It is going to be a huge season for Spartan, so do join us for another incredible championship season next year. But for 2024, that is Spartan Championship season over and out.
On a bon show ici, non? Il y a pas... Ah, mais en fait, ils filment un gros.